Very, extremely. It would. Hold on a second. I'm trying to see if it will allow me to start a next one. Okay, I think we may be able to stay where we are.
Okay.
But the link for people to watch is gonna change.
Mm-hmm.
So bear with me. Okay, no, we're live. We're live. Yeah, hold on. All right, family, apologies. Yeah, 1 second. Let me just make sure that we're live.
Yeah.
Hold on. Right, we're back. Okay. Apologies, family. Yeah, the powers that be locked off the video. And the video, I'm gonna have to appeal to get back the last video so that we can play it back. Yeah, something that they didn't like in the video. Normally they wait till after the thing, to challenge you, but I'm gonna have to appeal. Yeah, so apologies. I don't know. Yeah, so I hope people can find this once again and come back. But we're gonna continue from where Brother Abiola left off. So yeah, just give me the 9 in the chat if you let me know you can hear me, please. And once I've got that confirmation, we'll continue. But once again, apologies. Yeah, YouTube didn't like something that Brother Abiola was showing or saying. Probably a bit of both. So yeah. But I'd like you to do me a favor if you can hear me, which is just share the link, yeah, because okay, I can be heard. So we've got a new. So this is a new video, right? You're watching a complete new video right now. Yeah, let's clarify that for me. Yeah, you saw the thing live differently, and this is a totally new link. I'm gonna have to change the details of all of this stuff. Right. But yes, just want to big up Brother Abiola because okay, it's a new link. All right, cool. Brother Abiola, continue forward, bro. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I will continue. I try to remove all the content that will be maybe too much for YouTube, even if some of the content were taken from YouTube. So let's continue. We will be able to talk without the pictures. It's not that important. We were talking about how killing is the main way that neocolonialism used to sustain itself. It's the backbone of neocolonialism. So violence is the backbone of neocolonialism. And what I was showing you earlier was footage from a protest in Abidjan in 2004, where the people understood that France was there to oust President Laurent Gbagbo and put someone more to their liking in place, in replacement of President Gbagbo. So what happened is that there was a column of French soldiers on French tanks who were going to the presidency, to the presidential house, and people just spontaneously came to the streets and tried to block those French soldiers and these French columns. And the second most strategic point, one of the most strategic places in Abidjan is that place that I was showing where there was a protester. It's called Hotel Ivoire, and it's a famous hotel in Ivory Coast. So there you had the French militaries who were there, and they just started to fire live at the peaceful protesters, and they killed many people. And there are even people who got their head blown up, completely blown up. I don't know if we'll be ever able to recognize who this person was. And for those crimes, no one has been judged, no one has been put into trial, nothing happened. And this continued until 2011, when the rebellion that they have been funding launched an offensive after the presidential election, went straight into the capital, and even there, the president was still resisting. So the French, seeing that they were not able to win just by using the rebels, so by hiding, they have been forced to intervene with helicopters and bombing the city, and then using a French tank, to break through the gate of the presidential house and arrest President Laurent Gbagbo. And it was all live and everyone saw that. So in the end, violence is what the neo-colonial power used when they see that there are no other means to achieve their goals. Here is the situation on the continent today. So each flag is a foreign military presence on the African continent. So you can see that we have lots of foreign powers who are on the African continent, either officially or unofficially, in covert ways. So you can see that we have France, we have the United States, and we have Germany, Belgium, we even have India and Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, we have Japan, and we have the United Kingdom. So you see, we are very hospitable, we are very welcoming, we don't discriminate, we host everyone. And one of the most welcoming states, of course, is the state of Djibouti. So it's in the Horn of Africa. You can see a small points here on the map, and you have a whole host of flags, and they are all in the same country. So you have military bases of France, United States, of China, of Germany, Italy, and so on the same small territories. And of course, it's a very strategic territory because it controls access to the Red Sea, and the convoys of oil tankers go there. So here is the situation today in Africa. We can't really say that African countries are independent. You see, when people are saying that, well, they have been independent for 60 years and it's time to own your own mistakes and start to be adults. You see, well, you have all those military powers on your soil, and they are ready to kill anyone who will be a danger for their profits-making enterprises on the continent. That's the real deal with neocolonialism. In the end, it is the threat of violence that maintain bad leaders and kill good leaders on the African continent. This is why we are not making progress. This is why. So, in the end, neocolonialism is maintained by violence, assassinations, coup, armed rebellions, direct invasions, and it is the trump card of neocolonialism. Now, what are our cards? What can we do to break free of neocolonialism? How not to stop neocolonialism? Let's find out how we try to defeat neocolonialism so far, and why, in my opinion, why it didn't work yet, at least. Here are different ways that we have tried to use to achieve this national goal. Because defeating neocolonialism and making Africans powerful again is a national goal. I will focus mostly on what we Pan-Africanists have done so far, because most of our brothers and sisters are not even conscious yet of the dangers of neo-colonialism and the need to fight against it. So here is what we Pan-Africanists have tried so far. We have tried the personal development approach. Let's learn our history. Let's get to the true knowledge. And when everyone becomes conscious, then things will change. I think this is what Dr. Amos Wilson was calling feel-good history. 2, business. Let's first make money. When we will have enough Pan-African persons with money and power, then things will change. 3, demonstrations in the West. Let's make our voices heard. Let's take the streets and make our demands clear. Someday, somehow, things will change. 4, lobbying in the West. Let's create a black lobby, a powerful black lobby in the West. When this lobby becomes powerful enough, we will be able to influence the Western leaders. Then things will change. 5, let's create conscientization organizations. We will organize ourselves and live in Afrocentric ways, and we will also teach Afrocentric ways to our people. When our people become conscious, then things will change. Another approach that we've tried. Number 6, let's focus on the children. Our generation is already lost. We can't do anything really serious. Let's teach our children African consciousness. Then things will change. And on that subject, I have a small anecdote to tell you. I have an elder here in France with which we were often debating. And he was saying that the most important thing is to teach the children. When we'll be able to have children that are conscious, the work will be done automatically. We'll have conscious children and we'll be back on the top of the world. And all he was doing was publishing books for children. He was doing conferences about educating the children. He was doing everything he could to educate our children, which is good. But how this endeavor turned out in the end? In the end, his own daughter, his only daughter, ended up marrying a white guy and being in the universal love camp. So this approach, even on that small scale, is not guaranteed, even on the personal scale, because the children are living in an environment which is toxic. Last approach that I will also talk about is the delegation approach. And this brother, I will play just a few moments of his speech and translate it to you. It's a brother from Mali, who is covering the crisis in Mali, and he's a Pan-African brother, a very solid brother. So I will just play it for a few seconds.
Pour le peuple dans lequel toutes les différentes pensées, tous les différents courants africains doivent se retrouver pour faire une union. Effectivement, j'ai eu contact hier avec le président de Pan-Africanism, qui a une très bonne idée, qui est en train d'essayer de créer un groupe entre les activistes africains qui vivent en France et faire une feuille de route que nous allons une feuille de route que nous allons mettre à la disposition de tous les partis politiques africains.
Voilà. So he's saying that we will, as Pan-Africans, we will try to write a roadmap with all of our demands, all of our proposals, and we will go to talk with all the African political parties and say, here is what we Pan-Africanists want. If you do what we want, we will help you, we'll support you, we'll help you win the elections. And that's the plan. So that is what I call the delegation strategy, meaning that the Pan-Africanists don't want to do the dirty work themselves. They prefer to delegate to the current politicians who are not Pan-Africanists. So how does it make sense? I don't know. But anyway, this is a few of the approaches that we have tried mostly, and most of them, even we can say all of them, have failed. And I think it's urgent that we find more effective way. Otherwise, I will try to move up, right? So I think it's very urgent. It's very urgent because our children, otherwise, if we don't change radically the situation, our children won't be super Pan-Africanist. They won't be supermen and super women who will be able to change the situation, because the situation will have gotten worse. They will have a worse situation to deal with than ours. And I will quote Babachek Anta Diop in an article that he wrote in 1956 called Alert Under the Tropics. Here's what he was saying. The fundamental error of a reformist is that, so the reformists are people who don't want to make revolution. So the fundamental error of a reformist is that they do not seem to have a keen awareness of the fact that certain delays cannot be made up, cannot be recovered. After a certain gap, it is the destruction of American Indians, Australians, Bushmen. Highly evolved people were completely destroyed as the Carthaginian, Etruscan, etc. They were destroyed as political units. End quote. In the following year, in 1957, so it was even before the 1960, in 1957, he wrote in an article entitled, A Continent in Search of Its History, quote, the seriousness of the situation can be seen in the following figures. According to the latest communications made to the Academy of Sciences, the majority of Africans, 85 million, practice ancestral worship. So it was in 1957. The majority of Africans, 85 million, practice ancestral worship. We will say a half-forgotten monotheism. 28 million are Muslims, 15 million are Catholics, and 4 million are Protestants. Christians and Muslims have a liturgy, are organized, and can carry out religious propaganda. Both are making feverish efforts to convert the 85 million Africans they call pagans. Thus, the westernization of a definitive orientalization of Africa is linked to the success of one or the other. It is reasonable to think that an African federal government will give equal arms to the proponents of ancestral religion by provoking an ecumenical council and its priests to allow the creation of a hierarchy, a better adapted liturgy, the formation and the education of a caste of priests on a continental scale, the deepening and normalization of dogma on the basis of ancestral monotheism. In doing so, the future federal government will protect the continent from any new insidious penetration from abroad, and will protect Africa from cultural alienation. We are now in 2020, and we didn't get the African federal government Cheikh Anta Diop was calling for. That is why we have today 91% of the African population practicing foreign religions. This was not achieved by colonial governments, because as you saw in 1957, most Africans were practicing ancestral worship. Today, 91% of the African population is practicing foreign religions. So this was not achieved by colonial governments. And it's often an image that we have that this was the colonizer who directly converted everyone. But no, it was under the independence, so-called independence time, that most of the population got converted into Christianity, at least in the Christian dominated world. So what we can say is that without a Pan-Africanist federal government and without Pan-Africanist government in general, all of the bad trends we are seeing today will get amplified, and we will get back, I think, to physical slavery in 1 century or less, or physical extermination. The problem with all the methods we have tried so far is that we have been trying to solve a national problem with individual or local solutions. Those solutions are not inherently bad. We are all doing those solutions actually right now. We are all trying, and it's already super difficult. But they are ineffective if they are done without aiming for state power, without organizing for state power. Here is a quote from this guy, Mao Zedong, so the man who liberated China, basically, in an article from 1921 called Communism and Dictatorship. Here is what he wrote. Quote, in his lecture at Changsha, Russell, so another European communist, took a position in favor of communism, but against the dictatorship of the workers and peasants. He said, so Russell said, that one should employ the method of education to change the consciousness of the propertied classes, and that in this way, it will not be necessary to limit freedom or to have recourse to war and bloody revolution. My objections to Russell's viewpoint can be stated in a few words. This is all very well as a theory, but it is infeasible in practice. Education requires money, people, and instruments. In today's world, money is entirely in the hands of the capitalists. Those who have charge of education are all either capitalists or wives of capitalists. In today's world, the schools and the press, the two most important instruments of education, are entirely under capitalist control. In short, education in today's world is capitalist education. If we teach capitalism to children, these children, when they grow up, will in turn teach capitalism to a second generation of children. Education thus remains in the hands of the capitalist. Then the capitalists have parliaments to pass laws protecting the capitalist and handicapping the proletariat. They have governments to apply these laws and to enforce the advantages and the prohibitions that they contain. They have armies and police to defend the well-being of the capitalists and to repress the demands of the proletariat. They have banks to serve as repositories in the circulation of their wealth. They have factories, which are the instruments by which they monopolize the production of goods. Thus, if the communists do not seize political power, they will not be able to find any refuge in this world. How, under such circumstances, could they take charge of education? Thus, the capitalists will continue to control education and to praise their capitalism to the skies, so that the number of converts to the proletariat's communist propaganda will diminish day by day. Consequently, I believe that the method of education is unfeasible. What I have just said constitutes the first argument. The second argument is that, based on the principle of mental habits and on my observation of human history, I am on the opinion that one absolutely cannot expect the capitalists to become converted to communism. If one wishes to use the power of education to transform them, then since one cannot obtain control of the whole, or even an important part of the two instruments of education, schools and the press, even if one has a mouth and a tongue, and one or two schools and newspapers as means of propaganda, this is really not enough to change the mentality of adherents of capitalism even slightly. So I will stop there. It is clear, so I ended the quote. It is clear that history proved Mao Zedong right. The communists would have never been able to implement their ideas without organizing for and seizing state power. So I'm not telling you that to praise communism. I'm just saying that when you are looking for wide-scale change, you need state power. It's the same thing with Christianity. It is not the number one religion in the world today because it has focused on educating the people. It has become the number one religion because it has been able to seize state power in the Roman Empire when Emperor Constantine became a Christian. Constantine, I think we say in English, Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity. And that is when Christianity started to become powerful in this world. They were under persecution for like 300 years before that event. They were nothing. Same thing for Islam. Muhammad and his followers took state power in the Arabian Peninsula. Why do we think that we just have to focus on education and conscientization and everything will be okay? Or business or any other approaches that I mentioned earlier. The way people achieve national goals is by doing state-level actions after seizing political power nationally. Here is a picture of General Park Chung-hee of South Korea. We often like to make comparison between the Asian countries and Africa and saying, whoa, let's do business, let's focus on the economy and then we'll get better. But one thing that we need to acknowledge is that the economic progress started after the political revolution. So this guy, General Park Chung-hee, make a coup to seize power in South Korea and implement new policies that make his country powerful. It was the political realm before the economical realm. So the way people achieve national goals is by doing state-level actions after seizing political power nationally. In Kemet, that is how Nama did it. In Mali, that is how Sundiata did it. In the Zulu kingdom, That's how Shaka did it. In Haiti, that is how Dessalines did it. In Ghana, that is how Nkrumah did it. In Burkina Faso, that is how Sankara did it. In the United States, that is how Washington did it. In the Soviet Union, that is how Lenin did it. In Israel, that is how Ben-Gurion did it. In China, that is how Mao did it. In Cuba, that is how Castro did it. In Venezuela, that is how Chavez did it. In South Korea, that is how Park did it. And in Africa, that is how we will do it. In the Pan-African world, we have countless non-profit organizations, conscientization groups, education initiatives, business initiatives, etc. All without political coordination, all without an overall political goal, all without a political party. What do we hope to achieve this way? It's like having a soccer team with no strikers. We will do many passes, but we won't score many goals. Actually, we won't score any goal. I know of only 2 organizations that are supranational, that means they are present or want to be present in several African countries on the continent or in the diaspora. So I know only 2 organizations that are supranational in scope and have the word party in their name. The African People's Socialist Party, APSP, and the All African People's Revolutionary Party, RIP. None have any real influence anywhere yet. Isn't it crazy? I know they are over political organizations, but it's just an example, an illustration of a lack of political organization in the Pan-Africanist Afrocentric community. We can also note that the only supranational organization that have the word party in their name are leftists. It's because in the socialist and communist traditions, people take political power seriously. Actually, I never saw someone who was serious about communism and not in the Communist Party. In the Pan-Africanist world, everyone has his own definition of what Pan-Africanism is and what are his goals. There is nothing like a Torah or a Bible or a Quran or a manifest of a Communist Party that will make the goals clear and focus everyone's work. This is why the overall level of ambition of each of our organizations is low, and nothing great has been achieved since the UNIA of Marcus Garvey regarding the goal of unifying Africa. The last political figure who was serious about it, about unifying Africa, was Kwame Nkrumah in 1966. It has now been 54 years since there has been any major champion of Pan-Africanism, as I understand it. 54 years, 54 years. This is why we think we need another ideology to make our fight more effective. Pan-Africanism can't be reformed, it's already spread too thin. We need a new ideology that will make it clear that this struggle is a political struggle. We need a new ideology that will make it clear that we need to organize for state power in order to defeat neo-colonialism, unify Africa, and make Africans powerful again. We need a new ideology that will also break with all the divisions inside Pan-Africanism. This ideology will have a clear prescription about who is concerned about this African empire we are building. It will have a clear prescription about the economic system, the political system, and the spiritual system that we are building. It will be a focused and sharp tool, a sharp political tool. This ideology, we call it revolutionary Kamitism, and we think it's the only way out. What is Kamitism? And what is revolutionary Kamitism? We are not bringing anything new, actually. So want to be very modest. It is not something that we came up with recently. All the things that I will say to you have been said by our ancestors. People like Marcus Garvey, people like Sheikh Anta Diop, people like Kwame Nkrumah, people like Cabral. So it is just a synthesis of what they have said and done. So what is Kamitism? Kamitism in its essence is Afrocentricity. It's that simple. It's about doing everything from an African standpoint. The word Kamitism comes from Kemet, referring to ancient Egypt. It's about reclaiming African worldview, history, culture, spirituality, languages, and way of life in our daily existence. Now, why not simply Kamitism or Afrocentricity? Why revolutionary Kamitism? Unfortunately, Kamitism as it exists today has already been infected by the Pan-Africanist syndrome. By that, I mean that most people who are Kamit or Afrocentric or African nationalists are not currently organizing for state power. They are not thinking about state power. Most of them are only concerned about reconnecting with the ancestors and their own wellness on a personal level. That is why there is no Afrocentric party today. That is why there is no Kamit party today. That is why we prefer to talk about revolutionary Kamitism now. It will align everyone on the same goal about building state power. So what's the goal of revolutionary Kamitism? The goal is to build the Kamit state. What's the Kamit state? The Kamit state is the powerful African empire that the Honorable Marcus Garvey was calling for. That's it. And there is no other goal. The goal is to build the Kamit state. What benefits will the Kamit state bring? Again, nothing new. What is new is the focus. The benefits that the Kamit state will bring: first, it will bring security to all African people all around the world with a powerful army numbering in the millions. No more coup, no more Islamist or Western invasions, no more insecurity. Two, it will bring wealth to all African people all around the world. We will have our own currency and our own advanced industries in agriculture that will be world leading. Unemployment and poverty will be eliminated. Three, it will bring back the bond between the continent and the diaspora. All people of African descent will have an automatic right to citizenship in the Kamit state. There will be no talk about the year of return because it will be a permanent thing and it will be an automatic thing. How will the Kamit state work? First, it will be a multinational state that will unify the Bakongo, the Yoruba, the Oromo, the Jamaicans, the Mandangs, the Haitian, and all African nationalities in one imperial state. Two, it will be an African meritocracy, not a Western democracy. There won't be any election that money or celebrity can buy. We have in our own African history a lot of examples we can build from, starting with ancient Egypt and starting with political construction like the Kuba kingdom. We have a lot of examples to draw from. So we don't need a Western democracy to function. It will be an African meritocracy. First, it will be an industrialized state with the government playing a central role in orienting the economy towards higher levels of prosperity. How the economy will function there will be a combination of public, private, and cooperative enterprises working in a market economy. Like in Kemet, no individual will be able to influence or dictate what the state should do. So maybe we will be able to expand on that in the discussion. Number 4, it will be a state of people in arms, with mandatory military service for everyone, men and women. Number 5, it will be a state of justice, using African traditional justice systems instead of what we have now, with people with blonde wigs and the jails system that we are copying from America. So we didn't have this massive incarceration carceral system in Africa, so we don't need it today. Number 6, it will have Swahili as the federal language and have other African languages as the regional official languages. And number 7, we will have a renovated version of African spirituality at its core. So those are the main attributes of a Kamit state. How now will the Kamit state come into existence? We will need to create a political organization that will be able to conquer political power in several African countries and implement the vital measures that need to be taken. We need to work on it now. Every year that passes increases the distance between us and the great powers of this world. The difference with the previous political efforts will be the following. It will be a party of builders, not a party of speakers. What do I mean by that? I mean that everything we say we will do with the Kamit state, we will have to demonstrate it before being the government. We'll have to demonstrate it day by day right now. We'll have to show that we are capable by building small local versions of what we are preaching. This way, our people will, number 1, see that an alternative is possible, and number 2, that we are the ones who will make it possible. That's how we will have a majority of our people trusting us and giving us the responsibility to lead the state. We don't need to make everyone Afrocentric or Kamit or conscious. What we need is to make our people see the alternative in a practical way and desire it. If our people desire what we build, they will desire that we lead. If our people desire what we build, they will desire that we lead. That's the strategy. That's how the Kamit state will come into existence. Now, how long it will take to get to the Kamit state? It's impossible to give you a specific time frame, but I can say for sure that it will take many decades. If we are hoping for a quick solution, we can just leave the room right now. We will need to commit several decades of our lives to this project in order for it to succeed. Christianity spent 300 years in persecution before getting state power. Islam took 20 years from the time the Prophet Muhammad had his first revelation to the time he and his followers conquered Mecca. The Communist Party of Russia took 19 years from creation to the day of the Russian Revolution. The Communist Party of China took 28 years from creation to the day of the creation of the People's Republic of China. The Zionist political organizations worked for 50 years from the first Zionist Congress to the creation of the State of Israel. Since our situation is worse, we can expect that it will take us maybe even longer. We will spend those decades building practical, tangible things for our people. We will build schools, we will build media, we will build hospitals, we will build power plants, we will build companies, and we will create jobs. The difference with what we have been doing so far is that all those small local successes will be linked to a clear political alternative. They are not the end goal. We are not hoping to change the situation by building those small-scale projects. What we will be doing is communicating to our people what will be possible in the Kamit state, how much better they could be living in a Kamit state, because they will see what the Kamit are doing right now. We will be doing effective marketing for the Kamit party. That's the way forward. Doing small projects as Nation Kamit is needed and useful, but not effective in building the Kamit state. Doing small projects as Alkebulan revivalist movement is needed and useful, but not effective in building the Kamit state. Doing small projects as Maisha Kwanza is needed and useful, but not effective in building the Kamit state. What we need is a Kamit party. So, some parting words. Obviously, I don't have enough time to explain everything in detail, but I hope that you got the core of the vision. I call upon all Pan-Africanist people, all Afrocentric people, all Kamit people to work on building new mass political parties that will push forward our political vision. That's the most important mission of our generation. We can either fulfill it or betray it. The bad neo-colonial leaders that we have won't be replaced by Afrocentric ones magically. That's our call. What each of us can do today, if we are really concerned about solving the problem once and for all. 1, we can join an Afrocentric organization that has political leaning. You can join the Alkebulan revivalist movement today. You can join Nation Kamit today. You can join Afrocentricity International today. So there are already organizations that are working and you don't have to start from scratch. So you can already join them. Number 2, after you join an organization, I'm sorry, but you will have to give money to the organization so the organization can work. That is needed. Number 3, you will have to give some time. Number 4, you will have to give some brain, so coming with ideas for the organization to function better. Number 5, you will have to be harsh and ask questions. For example, if the organization that you join doesn't have a clear political program, a clear political strategy, it's our duty when we enter, when we join the organization, to ask, what is the political program? What is the strategy to solve our African problem, the big problem, once for all? How we can get more people to join? It's not a cycle of friends. We have to be harsh between each other, and we have to politicize if the political level is too low. Number 6, when we are in our organization, we need to recruit. Oftentimes, we have tiny organizations that don't grow. It can be a strategy, but when times come to grow, we need to roll up our sleeves and do what the other people are doing. If you see the Christian in the street, in the churches, they are working. They are busy working. So we need to do the same thing. And number 7, we need to have a unity mindset, a unification mindset, I would say. What does it mean? It means that as an organization, we are promoting unity. We are telling our people that African countries on the continent and in the diaspora need to unite. But the people are seeing that we, as proponents of these ideas, are not united. So, of course, we are not credible when we are telling people to unify. So one thing we need to do is to do acts of unification, to show to our people that we have been able to unify ourselves at a certain level. Of course, not all of our organizations will be able to come into one. But when we are in an organization and we see another organization or other organization who have the same kind of ideas and the same way of working, it's a duty to try to become one, to become stronger. So I think those are the simple things that if you are not in an organization, you can do today. And if you are in an organization, you can also start doing. Let's close up. Let's close with a few words from Papa Cheikh Anta Diop. He wrote those words in 1952 in an article named Towards an African Political Ideology. Unfortunately, those words are even truer today than they were 70 years ago. To all Africans, so that is how he starts. To all Africans, comrades from Paris, from the provinces, and from Africa, fascism is coming fast. When it shows up, you will bitterly regret not having used this respite to work for your country. That you have bowed your head so far will no longer be enough for the fascists. The fascists will be willfully skeptical of your loyalty to them and your deep desire to remain passive forever. They will demand from you irrefutable proofs of your indignity, and your sluggishness and the slope of your degradation will be limitless. Comrades of Paris, province, and Africa, abandon your fallacious reasonings, which are only an unconscious capitulation before the difficulties. Come and strengthen with your lucid criticism your concrete struggle, the only movement whose effectiveness on the African level has provoked the fierce repression that you know. Criticize it from within and not from the outside, because you will be a voluntary or involuntary accomplice of the government. Why do you want to wait for the movement to be strong, for the repression to cease, for everything to return to normal? Why do you make your membership subject to all these conditions? Don't you see that this is an unworthy surrender on your part, because it is precisely at the moment when everything is going wrong that you are most needed? Thank you. Asante sana. Hotep.
Mic check, mic check. Can you hear me, bro?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good. Greetings, welcome, kings and queens. 10-9 Wadi Hotep, Abibi Fahodie, African Liberation, kings and queens. Welcome to this particular session right here. And we want to apologize for the little mishap that took place a while ago. Yes, kings and queens. And I want to say, give thanks to my brother, Abiola, for that excellent presentation. I was saying whilst you were presenting, bro, that it is one of the most effective breakdowns of neo-colonialism that I've come across, and I've been hearing breakdowns of neo-colonialism my entire life, and so I'm very appreciative of what you have dropped today. And I'm sure that ones are going to get something from it. I am trying to salvage the previous link, the previous video, so that we can put it together and re-upload everything as one. Yeah. So stay tuned, family. I'm going to try my best to preserve everything. We may have to edit out a piece of the video that was causing YouTube to, to become concerned. But we should be able to do that whilst preserving the essence of the presentation. So we give thanks. Yeah, we give thanks. All right. I'm gonna share the link. Yeah. So ones who want to come on and take part in a conversation, ask Brother Abiola a question, or share, add to the knowledge, you know what I'm saying, share a perspective, feel free to do so right about now. Let me turn on my camera so you can see my good looking face. All right. Hold on, I got a situation going on here with my camera. Okay, kings and queens, right. Excellent presentation once again, Brother Abiola. The name of give me the name of the brother that you mentioned, the ancestor who wrote the book that you were highlighting.
The book on
again.
currency. It is
Yes.
Joseph. I will try to just send you a link. Joseph Chundang Premi. So it's a Cameroonian name. I will just link.
Yes.
I will just put it in the comment.
Okay. Now for those who are watching, yeah, please just give an overview of some of the primary points that he makes in the book. And one of the reasons why I'm asking this is because when people hear currency, they automatically think capitalism. And so some people might be watching thinking, well, why is Brother Abiola promoting capitalism in the presentation?
All right.
So let's clarify that for us, please.
So actually, before talking about the book of the Chudang Pwemi, I just want to mention another brother called Klapopo. I think I will try to share my screen. I don't know if it's possible, Brother Shakara. Okay, I will share my screen and go to Amazon so you can see the books I'm talking about. So I think I'm sharing my screen right now. So there is a brother called Klapopo, and he is very interesting because he has done some work on the history of slavery, and then another work on the history of money, basically. So money and the history of money on the African continent. So here is the book. It's called Mictal, Mbongo, and Benda, the monetary history of the political sovereignty of Africa, in Africa. So what the brother has done is to explain that the idea of money and using something as a way to measure the value of things so we can exchange and grow beyond barter economy. This history has been very, very ancient in Africa. So it explains how it was done in ancient Kemet, and it explained how it was done in many African kingdoms and empires. So the history of money is very ancient in Africa. We have been the inventors of that. So with Chudang Pwemi, what Chudang Pwemi is saying, so I will go right to find his book. So what Chudang Pwemi is saying with this book, so it's called money, because I think the meaning of currency maybe is not the same in French as in English, but really the term is really currency. So for example, the yen, the dollar, or the Haitian good, for example. So he say money, servitude, and liberty. And what he is saying is his book is that I will put aside even the country we are under, which are under franc CFA rules. Just even the country that have their own money system, like Ghana, they use the cedi. So when you go to Accra, you use the cedi. Or Nigeria, we use the naira. What Pwemi is saying is that we don't understand the role of money. So if you have been interested in this question, you may already know that when you get some money in the bank, for example, when you get your salary, it's because a company pay you some money because you have done some work. So your source of money is the company paying you. Then you have to ask yourself, where does the company get its money from to start? Usually, if you don't have money, if you want to start a company, you will go to the bank and ask for a loan. So the bank will lend you some money so you can start your company and pay people. Then we need to ask, when does the bank get its money from? And usually we think that banks get their money from our deposits. So we have a salary, so we put it in the bank, and the bank maybe use part of my money to do some loans to other people. And what Kwame is saying is that it's not true. It's not how the majority of money is created in this world.
Right.
The reality is that money is created, the modern form of money is creating from nothing. We have in each country institutions that are called central banks, and they have the monopoly of creating money. So, for example, in the United States, the Federal Reserve can decide to create billions of dollars from nothing. It's just a computer written in a computer somewhere. So they decide that they will create billions of dollars from nothing. And how those billions of dollars get injected in the economy? Well, those billions of dollars, when they are created by the central bank, are then lent to the commercial banks. So, for example, JP Morgan will go to the Federal Reserve and ask for a portion of those new billions. And JP Morgan will have to pay an interest to the central bank on this portion, you see. So the interest that the commercial banks have to pay to the central banks is called the, I don't know the word in English, but in France, we call that the director rate. It's like the principal, the main interest rate in the country. It's the one from the central bank.
Right.
And then each bank will lend the money to the customers, so companies or individual people, and add its own interest rates on top of that. You see? So that is how the system works. So money is created by the central bank from nothing, and then what you get as a salary, you will go to the bank to make a deposit. So the deposit is not the source of the bank's money, it's a result. You see, the money is created by nothing. So that's the first part.
Yes.
The second part is, since money is created by nothing, basically, it means that there are an institution in the country that can print money. You have already heard the expression, they are printing money, that will cause inflation, etc. So there are people in the country that have the power to print money. And today, in many economies, this power is under private hands. So, for example, the central bank in the United States have shareholders. So those are private individuals who have the power to print money, basically. And what Chudang Kwame is saying is that if we understand how money works, then we can use it to grow our country very powerfully. Because if you can create money from nothing, why do you have people who are unemployed? You see? Because all they need is that you
just get
money to an entrepreneur or to them, and they will create a business from that instead of doing nothing. You see? So this is extremely powerful. It's even beyond just fighting against the franc CFA. It's how money, when used properly, will eliminate poverty, unemployment everywhere, basically. But now it is under the clause of private interests.
So then that becomes a question then, because in that respect now, so many of us here in Pan-African circles speak about the need to tie currency to natural resources, the value of the currency needs to be tied to gold or whatever natural resource that we decide. Yeah. But what you're saying seems to be the opposite of that. Yeah. So the question then becomes, how do we, if we're gonna use money, yeah, and I know I'm kind of starting in the middle of the conversation here, because there's some questions that I really should be asking before I ask this one, but we're here now.
No problem.
All right. How do we create a monetary system that is different from the one that we currently live under, and understanding that this monetary system is fundamentally exploitative?
All right. I think the first thing that we have to do is to put the power of the central bank under the government,
right,
under public hands, because today there is an ideology that is pushed by European central bankers, European financiers, and American financiers, who say that the central banks need to be independent from the government. So they control the money and they report to no one but themselves. You see? So it's totally crazy, but that is what they are pushing for.
Right.
And in this system, obviously, they are not interested in actually solving the unemployment problem or doing anything. They are only serving their friends who are other bankers. What we need to do is, in our African society, to put the power of printing money, of creating money, under the hand of the government, because it is the one that is accountable to the people. So to me, that's the most important thing. We have to put the power of the central bank to create money, to give it to the government. And second, the government need to use this power to create money to help the production system in the country, that is to make loans to people who are creating companies. So it can be private companies, can be cooperatives, but it need to give the money to the people who are doing the production, the farmers, the industrialists, the workers. That is how we can channel this money, because, and that is the danger, if you use this money to just give loans to consumers instead of producers, what will happen is that people will get a lot of money.
Yes.
But since we didn't produce anything, the money will mean nothing. The money won't have any value, and that's what we call inflation. So when people talk about inflation, is that there is too much money in the system, but it's not that there is too much money in the end of the producers. Is that there is too much money in the end of consumers, and there is nothing to buy. So the money don't have any value. But if we respect those two principles, the power to create money is under the control of the government, that is accountable to the people, and the government use this power to boost the production in the country, then we will create wealth instead of poverty.
Yes. There's so many conversations to be had in what you just said. But the fundamental point is that we have to create a producer economy rather than a consumer economy. And in that sense, we should overcome some of the trappings of capitalism, if we understand the role that consumerism plays within a capitalist economy. All right, well, let's get to some fundamental questions. By the way, the link is in the chat, kings and queens. So anybody who wants to join the conversation, come live. The link is in the chat if you want to ask Brother Abiola a question, or add to the knowledge, or even challenge him. Respectfully, feel free to do so. And by the way, if anybody would like to make a contribution to this series that we have been doing, entitled The Prelude to Messiah, RBG at 100, feel free to do so by hitting up the PayPal link in the description. All contributions are gratefully received. Please do not feel obliged, but all, as said, are gratefully received and appreciated. Brother Abiola, it's interesting. While you were presenting and you were going in on the zombification of African governments, some hot off the press news came to my attention, Brother Abiola.
Okay.
I'm gonna I'm gonna show you the hot off the press news right about now. Let me scroll a little piece. Can you see that, Robert Abiola?
I see it very well.
Yeah. So this news came to me whilst you are presenting. It says Zimbabwe signs $3.5 billion deal to compensate white farmers. Yes. Now, for anybody who may not be up on this particular issue, for the longest while, since the turn of the century, the year 2000, there's been a battlefront in I should say the battlefront heated up from the year 2000 till now, when the war veterans in Zimbabwe began to move onto the land that was stolen from our African ancestors in Zimbabwe by Europeans. Yeah. And so at that point, when the war veterans moved on the land, the government had a choice, as it had been lagging on this issue, in abiding by an agreement that was signed called the Lancaster House Agreement, which basically had a stipulation within it that the land issue could not be touched, for a decade. The Lancaster House Agreement was signed in 1980 or 1979, there and thereabouts. And so because they were not allowed to deal with the land issue for another 10 years, it came to 1990, and throughout that decade, the 90s, behind closed doors, the government of Zimbabwe and the UK were going back and forth, and pressure, by the way, and the government of the UK was supposed to put up the money, for the land redistribution program to pay for the land, that was stolen, and they basically reneged on the agreement constantly. And so in the late 90s, early 2000s, the war veterans moved on the land and began to take back the land, and the government had a choice at that point, to either mow down the war veterans, which they could not do. They would lose all credibility if they did so, or side with the war veterans, and eventually they sided with the war veterans. And so since then, that's when the West ramped up its anti-Mugabe propaganda, and so ever since the overthrow and the passing of Mugabe, we've seen a kind of a rollback on a lot of the policies that were being instituted towards land redistribution, land reclamation, and it looks now like basically the white people them in in Zimbabwe are going to get compensation for the land that was taken from them, because the land was taken from our ancestors before that. So shout out to Emerson Mnangagwa, the current president of Zimbabwe, for this. I've cross-referenced this. Al Jazeera is reporting it, CNN is reporting it, Reuters is reporting it. So my brother Abiola, as you are presenting a very real example of neo-colonialism presented itself, my brother, I just want to get your point of view on that situation.
That's just crazy, and I don't know if it's controversial, but I have been somewhat critical of the whole ZANU-PF, so that is the party that fought the independence war in Zimbabwe. And I mean, personally, I did nothing though, so I can't criticize those people. They are like here, and I'm here. So that's the first thing. But that being said, I think that they were not really Pan-Africanist, as I understand Pan-Africanism. You see, because to me, the goal of unifying Africa is so central, is so important, that if it's not your main goal, you are not a Pan-Africanist. And that is the problem with Pan-Africanism, because other people have other definitions. But that's my vision of Pan-Africanism. And when you look at it through this lens, you see that by being an isolated country, a weak, isolated country that is doing what is right, but against a people who is powerful, there will be retaliation. And the choices that the government has to make right now is I don't have enough money to provide food, jobs to the population. And what they are hoping for is that by doing this deal, they will get international, so-called international institutions to lend them new money. You see, so that is the calculation they are doing. Then they are doing this calculation because they don't have really any choice. If they don't do that, what does it mean? It means that the economy will continue to get worse. But actually, I think even with this deal, it will get worse, because if I was a white farmer, what I will do is to get the money and get the fuck out. That's what I will do. You see? So to me, those crazy things are just consequences of the fact that those leaders have betrayed Pan-Africanism, or they were not Pan-Africanist people to start. I think that is the crux of the issue, and it will happen to all the African states that will try to be in the middle, not really Pan-Africanist, but have some kind of rhetorics that will get them in trouble. So to me, that's the result.
I just want to firstly say that what you said at the beginning in terms of being critical of ZANU-PF, that is not controversial at all, or it shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? In any way, shape, or form. By the way, I did forget to ask you, the books that you mentioned earlier, are they in English?
I think they are not translated yet. Yeah.
Okay.
They're not translated yet. Yeah.
Well, that means we've got to start learning some French, Kingston. And whilst we're doing that, we've got to work on translating those books into Swahili, actually, and Kikongo, and all these things. Yeah, it's just one of them things that we have to do. And I will say that there is a monumental amount of scholarship that is in French that is not in English. Yeah. And so we do ourselves well over this next generation to, you know, become fluid in the Francais, because for the sake of communication and for the sake of research, it might be necessary for this day and for practical purposes in this day and age, whilst we are instituting our African languages as the principal languages. Would you agree, Abiola?
I agree with you, but I also think that on the French side, on both sides, we need to get new solutions regarding translations, because I'm also sure that there are great works that are being done in Portuguese and Spanish, but they are very in silos. So I think that this may be an opportunity to have an initiative around translation, doing translation of Pan-Africanist books between different language. I'm sure it exists, but you need to.
It does. I know. Afrocentricity International. But there is historical precedence for this, though. Yeah, and follow me now. In the 800s to 900s, yeah, a movement started among the Arabic world, and it's known as the Arabic translation movement. And what they began to do, was to gather texts that were written in Greek, and primarily and Latin, and some say even Coptic, and all the languages from our ancestors in the Nile Valley, and began to translate them all into Arabic. And what the result of that, was that Islam and the Arabic world experienced a flourishing of technological and scientific advancement, which affected and impacted Arabic culture monumentally, because they were intaking all this new knowledge, but also translating it and relating it and transmitting it in their own culture. And it had a monumental impact. So when people talk about the fact that, because there's a lot of talk now, but the fact that the terms like algebra are said to come out of the Arabic language, and these kinds of things, a lot of that is based upon the fact that they went around translating all of this stuff, and so we shouldn't underestimate the value of a serious and significant translation movement as a part of the step towards getting to certain places. And on that subject, Brother Abiola, because you put forward a lot of stuff here in terms of getting to the how did you term it? The Kamitic state? Now, sounds like a monumental vision. Sorry, before I go any further, I want to shout out Brother Davis, who from the Manhood Academy for Boys, who was listening in. I saw him comment. And I also want to shout out Auntie Affiong, El Affiong, of Moya Watalifa.
I saw Auntie Affiong.
Yes. She's locked in, Brother Abiola. You
Greetings, greetings.
You must know you're one of her favorites. For which reason I'm a little bit jealous. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm joking. but the Auntie Affiong is one of our preeminent Pan-African organizers in today's world. And to be honest with you, at AOD a few years ago, she made the point, that one of the things that we need to do in this time is to be teaching about neo-colonialism, what it is and how it operates, and so ever since then, like obviously before then, but that gave me a bit of a mission focus in terms of one of the key things that we need to do for our generation today is to understand neo-colonialism and teach about it. And I'll say to you, bro, this is one of the best and most effective presentations that I've heard on the subject. So credit to you, majorly for this. I learned a lot listening. And so I truly appreciate that. But in terms of now, I like the fact that you said, how long will this vision take? Many decades, just get that straight from now, right? You know what I'm saying? But you are speaking my language in the sense of the fact that instead of just trying to teach and preach, let those of us who already have the understanding develop to whatever capacity that we can what we need. Papa Garvey said there is no force like success. That is why the individual concerns himself with surrounding himself with the evidence of it. Yes, right. So the question then becomes, because I know people you did kind of answer this, but I know people are going to be thinking, well, how do we get from where we are at right now, to that big vision? And so for a generation, as is said, each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. So what would you say are some of the primary things that our generation now need to focus on and manifest so that our people can see success stories as associated with revolutionary Kamitism?
Well, I will start by saying that if we have a big problem, we need a big vision. That's the first thing, because we have a very serious problem. So we can't avoid trying to find big solutions, and big solutions take time. And I also think that we don't need to be afraid of those big visions, because even if they can be intimidating, they can also be motivating and inspire people. You see, for example, I like to read about the history of Israel, because it was not something that was written in stone. It was not guaranteed to work. And when you read the history, you understand that in the 19th century, the people who were advocates of creating a state of Israel were in the ultra minority of the Jewish community. People were looking at them like they were crazy. The Jewish people, they were in France and they wanted to integrate into French society. The Jewish people who were in Germany wanted to integrate into the German society. And the man who became the most prominent advocate of Zionism is called Theodor Herzl. And before converting to Zionism, he was a staunch German assimilationist advocate. He wanted to be German. He even came up with a plan to do a mass conversion event of Jews to Catholicism for the Pope. You see? So even he started as someone who thought that it was a crazy idea. But he was forced to see that there was no other solution to guarantee the livelihood of the Jewish people as a whole.
Yes.
So we are in the same situation. Of course, it's very difficult and it's a big vision, But what we need to understand is that there is no over solution. You see, it's like when you want to be a world champion and you want to beat, I don't know, Usain Bolt, and your trainer comes and say you have to train every day and run that many kilometers every day, and you are like, well, it's hard. So you have two choices. Either you commit, knowing that it will be painful, or you just stop and you go and watch soccer, you see? And that's the alternative. So I think we need this big vision. Second, the big vision can start to be implemented in small steps.
Right.
And that's the most important thing. I think, for example, when we think about unifying Africa, we think about 54 states, 55 states, and we say, oh, okay, it's just impossible.
And 3,000 languages.
Yeah, and 3,000 languages, and we are like, oh, it's impossible, it's too complicated and stuff. But what we really need to look at is at figures, at numbers. You see, for example, the African population on the continent, it's said to be around 1 billion people, I think, something like that. But when you look at the population, you will see that the country that matter at the beginning are not that many. Nigeria has 200 million people. It means that if there is something happening, something positive happening in Nigeria, it's 1/5 of African population on the whole.
Right. Point taken.
The Democratic Republic of the Congo has 100 million people. Ethiopia has 100 million people. And the three countries, Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, combined have around 100 people. So it's already 400 million people. It's half of the African population, and it's less than 7 or 10 states. So it's not like a huge number that we need to start with. We can start somewhere small. So that is how we solve big problems. We cut it into small parts, and we start part by part, day by day.
Now, the reason why I like your answer, is because sometimes people want, because like you said, people need to see success in it. So they want to see what's in front of them now. And your answer may sound very intangible in one sense, like the first part in terms of vision. But I don't know another force that would spur us into motion in that kind of way. Other than just seeing the vision. And I think that was Papa Garvey's greatest strength. Two, magnanimous vision and masterful organization. You understand what I'm saying? And I think the second one is predicated on the first. In the sense of you have to see what's not there to be able to do this work. At this stage, right? You see what I'm saying?
You know, let's talk about examples. You see, because I think it's interesting so people can visualize.
Yes, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Because as I said, I'm not against small projects or local projects. We need to do them. The main difference is that we have brothers and sisters who think that doing small projects is enough, or that is all they can do. But I think that using the same efforts and the same money that we are using for those small projects, but connecting them to the big picture will be immensely helpful. Look at an example. It can be a political stunt or a media stunt. I don't know. But you know that to present a political candidate to be president in most of West African country is around, I don't know, 50,000 euros to be a candidate at a presidential election. Imagine if we have a candidate whose main platform is saying that Mali will unify with all Africa. In Mali, all African from the diaspora, be it Haitian, Jamaicans, Americans, all people from the Caribbean and all African, Ivorian, Burkina Faso, Congo, everyone who want to come into Mali to work, we have a Malian passport automatically. And we will be able to sell it because we will say, look, there are many talented people who are abroad and who are willing to work and to invest in Africa. But there are so many hurdles that they won't come. But Mali will implement this Pan-Africanist vision, and we'll have a lot of investment coming into our country and a lot of brothers and sisters coming home. You see, and those 50,000 euros will be raised quickly. You see, and people just hearing about this campaign will start to visualize what is possible. It will start debates, you see, and people will start agreeing and disagreeing. So it is the kind of stuff that we can do, and we can do it relatively quickly. You see, when we build an hospital, it's the same thing. It has to be a propaganda, a marketing tool,
right,
to promote the bigger idea. The plan is not the hospital. The plan is what we can say with this hospital. Yes.
No, I agree, Ro. I'm gonna just highlight something. Auntie Affiong says, Shakara speaks. I was at the last live session, and it was also great. Also gained a lot of insight on the ADOS phenomena. Give thanks, Auntie, and big up brother Omowale Africa for his presentation. Although I'm sure Auntie would like to revise some of his perspective on the subject. but we give thanks, for that endorsement right there. And brother M.A. Brown has a question. Says, question for brother Abiola: do we need money at all? Do we need money? Let me put some flesh on this one, brother Abiola. Many Pan-Africanists, have put forward the idea of bartering and trade, exchanging resources for resources as a primary goal at this moment. One, to connect our wealth to things that are tangible. Two, to overcome some of the machinations of capitalism. And three, to negate the influence of foreign capital. Within African markets. And so the idea is that if we have control over our resources, which is what they want to bring their money in for in the first place, but underpay for it, then we should relinquish the need for capital and therefore capitalism as an institution. So I'm not sure if I'm perverting the intention of brother M.A.'s question. I hope I'm not, but I just wanted to add that to it. Why is he going to answer it? So do we need money at all?
Yeah, it's a great question. My view is that we need money, and I think I'm not in favor with the proposal of using natural resources as the standard, or using bartering as the standard, because just by looking at history, we have been the first people to invent this idea of money, of abstract money. You see, so it was not a colonial project or an imperialist capitalist project. It was African people inventing this stuff to solve daily trade problems. You see, so there is a thing called cowries. It's like shells, white shells that we used to trade. So
on that point, brother Abiola, so not to interrupt you, remember your point, but I learned recently, because we tend to associate the cowrie with West Africa, but apparently the cowrie comes from East Africa, which that there was trade with exchange of cowrie going on pre-colonially between East and West Africa. But go ahead.
Okay, that's interesting. And we have cowries, we have gold, obviously, silver. So we have different ways to trade. And why did we invent those ways? Because if you just use barter, the system becomes quickly very complicated as you grow. You will have, for example, look at the current society. There are millions of products. So how can we exchange and find way to say, okay, so you are selling me this car, I need to tell you to send you, I don't know how many ships, or computers. I don't know. You have to do a pretty complicated calculation. But if you have a unit that you can measure every product with, it makes the system simpler. So that is the first role of money, is to measure things, so you can trade in a simpler way. And it's also a simpler way to store value. So, for example, if you have to store all your possessions in in a physical way, that means that if you move, for example, you have to move all your wealth with you when you travel. You see, if you have a bank account, you don't need to do that. You see, so it's a very convenient way to store stuff. So it's a better way, basically.
Okay.
And the third reason, and I think for me it's the most important thing, is what Chudang Kwemi explained, in that with money you have a immensely powerful tool to create wealth, because from nothing you can say, oh, you guys are doing nothing, you don't have a job, here is money, so you can start to work. You see, this is almost magical. You see, if you had to first go to mine something, some gold somewhere, it will be more difficult. So I think it's the best system. And just to finish, I think the other alternative will be to say, okay, we have another system, and here is how it is better on these three axes.
Yes, I understand. I'm going to add one more thing to the situation. You mentioned Gaddafi, yeah. I am many Pan-Africans is not a fan of Gaddafi, but the fact that some of the things that the West was threatened by some of the things that he was proposing is a fact. Yeah, one of the things that a lot of Pan-Africanists were like Gaddafi for was proposing this gold dinar, currency, where he wanted to measure the currency according to gold, the value of gold. Yeah, do you think that is viable?
I don't think it's viable long term. And I don't think it's the best way. What happens when you have no more gold? You see? When you have gold.
Don't necessarily consider the fact that not all resources are infinite. But
not all resources are infinite, and not all countries have a lot of resources. We also need to look at that strategically, because, for example, when we say Africa is the richest continent on earth, we need to look at Africa and specific parts of Africa.
Regionally,
are distributed unequally. You see, you have countries like Congo, we have a huge amount of natural resources, and you have country like Niger, for example. Today there is only uranium. You see,
but isn't that problem addressed with the negation of the borders?
No, because on a strategic level, we won't be able to unify all African countries from the get-go. You see, so for example, that is why you have a Sankara in Burkina Faso, and you need to work with what is available in Burkina Faso first. You see, so that's also one of the drawbacks of using natural resources as a monetary system.
Last question on this, and then I'll open to IC3. Cryptocurrency. Are you familiar with cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I heard of it. I will admit that I'm not very well versed in that, but from what I saw is that they work differently. For example, I know that Bitcoin has a fixed amount of quantity available. There is a finite quantity of Bitcoins, and for me, that is a problem. I am more yes, I think that it's better to have a system when we can create money for nothing. I don't know if it's controversial, but I really think that this idea is good.
No, it may well be, but it's something to consider. What I will say, though, family, is that we have to look at. It's very difficult for us to consider economics outside of capitalism, and because we only know capitalism, whenever we hear something that sounds like it, we can only associate it with capitalism. And so it's necessary to understand economics at its very foundation. All economic systems are based upon resources, land and resources, labor, and exchange. There is no economic system that doesn't have a means of exchange. Yeah. And that is defined variously in different economic systems, but having a means of exchange, which is what money is, yeah, is a part of any economic system, even prior to the existence of money. Yeah. And so we just have to understand, if we understand it as exchange or means of exchange, maybe it might, because, you know, money has a particular, you know, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. So when we hear money, we react a certain way. Even I do. Yeah. I admit that handicap. Brother IC3, I know this is your conversation.
Greetings. I think the agents
you're in
were
your
working
element right now.
Yo, I can't believe it. You know, when your stream went down,
yes,
I thought, what's going on? Because this was such a brilliant. When the stream went down, what's going on? I had to go out for a walk. I've only just got back in now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies for that. But yes. I've got 4 questions, but I'm going to give way to you, my brother. The link is in the chat, Kings and Queens, if anybody wants to come through. Go ahead, IC3.
Yes. From the presentation that I managed to catch just before the shut off, is your brother Abiola is right on it. He is on the cutting edge. That's where everybody has to, or not, I won't say everybody, but people have to be, as many people as can be at that edge. And it's very difficult because very few people can have this kind of conversation. You know, the conversation, it's like the air gets really thin because you're moving into problem solving. You're actually going to the root of the issue. And so it's the ultimate subject, because everything goes back to money. So we really have to understand how to manage and tackle that situation. Because as I was going out for a walk, I was thinking about the stream that I saw, and the last horrific bit I saw was people getting shot up and stuff like that. And so as I was walking, I was just thinking about that and thought, you know, people only look at the guns and the obvious display of power and the screaming, and then they think, oh, maybe we can get some more guns and so on, and then they get disheartened. But that's not the only way to look at the problem, because that's the front side, which was you were saying was about killing. But you see, the magic is all in that word exchange, because I've been studying about currency and stuff like that, and I in the discussion over the last few days, the word currency came up again, and I looked it up, and it says that currency is the actual exchange that manipulates the value of the currency. So I thought, wow, what's? Let me relook at this again. So basically, to cut it in simple terms, as Brother Shakara said, exchange. You see, when you go and you meet the person you're about to trade with, or the people you're about to trade with, depending on how that trade goes, and depending on how you handle that exchange, will impact the currency. So it's all about how people are interacting. You see, because you know, put it in simple terms, if you go to do a deal and or even a shop, and you don't like the customer service, or you don't like the way that they presented the stuff to you, that can bring a certain feeling. And then and currency is in the realm of feelings and opinions about the person that is doing the transaction. I don't know if that makes sense. You have any comments on that?
I don't know if Brother Shakara wants to start, but yeah, I can comment on that. What I found interesting is this idea of exchange and the idea also that money is at the center. I think that is something that is not really understood in what we are doing. The idea that money is at the center. And for example, I show those images, this footage of people getting shot, and this is the visible part of the war. And if you look at the Ivorian crisis in 2010, 2011, they made a move that no one had ever seen, you see, because Ivory Coast is in the franc CFA system controlled by France. So what they did actually before starting the war, before launching the military offensive, what they did was to cut access of the Ivorian government to the central bank. So the government couldn't get his money that were in the West African Central Bank. They just say, you are no more the government, we'll give this money to your opponent. And from that point, it was game over. Just from that point, it was game over.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
It's very simple. It's very simple.
Hey, I'm in the mind of Amos Wilson, yeah, where he speaks about our sensibilities being induced. And in the West, people talk about markets as though they are animate objects or a being within itself. So that we speak about how the market behaves.
Good. Yeah? You go. Keep going.
You know what I'm saying? As though the market has vibes, you know,
right,
and thoughts, and emotions. When really it's people, and so when they say, like, for example, recently in relation to COVID and in relation to Brexit, they've been saying the market doesn't like uncertainty, and what that means is that there are people with investments who may pull their investments, if they're not sure if their investments are going to grow, and so I think if I'm trying to marry what you're saying with what Robert Abiola has been presenting, it's about the role and the function that money plays within an economy, or currency plays, or means of exchange plays within a currency, is based upon the values of that system. So in effect, the money behaves according to our values and principles. So there is no the market doesn't like. It's the people don't like.
That's right.
And in that sense,
that's true.
So so what I'm trying to get to well, I'm not quite sure if I've formulated it in my head properly.
But keep going.
I'm in the mind of Baba Mwalimu Baruti, Tanzania, when he wrote presented the Arusha Declaration. Have you read the Arusha Declaration, Brother Abiola?
I'm aware of it.
Right.
I haven't read it in entirety yet.
It's an interesting read, because it's a very real appraisal. This is now for a little bit of background. This is the document through which Mwalimu Baruti in Tanzania launched or presented the Ujamaa economic program, whereby
a number or Nyerere.
Say again?
It's Nyerere or Baruti?
Sorry, I'm getting sorry. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Sorry, there's Mwalimu Baruti and there's Mwalimu Nyerere. Thank you for your correction. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. The Arusha Declaration, where he was presenting the Ujamaa program, right? And he goes, but the whole first part of it is basically a breakdown of all of the things that Tanzania cannot afford to build its economy on. And the one of the major things that he goes into is that we cannot rely on money. Money is not going to do it, and there's various different reasons that are given for it, which, to be honest with you, are all predicated on the fact that money is not or our means of exchange is not controlled by us. If he doesn't say that explicitly, but implicitly that is within it. And so I'm in that mind, but then he goes through and he forgive me, kind of details are not clear in my mind at the moment. Yeah, it's been a while since I've read it. But as he's going through, he's eliminating this force and that force, and then he's saying basically we have to rely upon our people, our labor, and our production. Yeah, what we can produce, right? Which is kind of what Abiola was saying a while ago. Now, does that mean? But he didn't absent money from the system.
No.
What he was saying is we have to centralize our efforts around something other than it. Yeah. Especially because money was considered a means, but with which to get rich rather than to produce and to develop. Yeah. So I've said all that to get to a point whereby Abiola was talking about the difference between consumer-based monetary systems and producer-based monetary systems. Yeah. So maybe we need to go in deeper on that in terms of the idea that the money goes towards farming. If that makes sense. That's one example that you use, right, Robert Abiola?
Yeah, go on. I will comment on that. Yeah. No,
so money goes towards farming. I'd say another usage would be technology. Say it.
Industry and
technology, mining. You know what I'm saying? I'd consider that to be another usage. But then the question would be, that investment goes in, and I suppose money is made from the selling of those resources. Yes. But then does that situation in and of itself develop a principle that is people-centered and labor-centered, if that makes sense, rather than it's about the money and this abstract thing called the market? I don't know if I've made
beautiful question. Very good. Yeah, it's difficult like that on this subject.
I think the term money obscures things usually, and it's also brings some difficulties. What we are really interested about is wealth, is resources, and we can't eat money, we can't sleep on money, we can't circulate, get transportation, flying on a note of dollar. I don't know. It's not possible. You see, so it's physical things that we use every day that constitutes wealth. So the goal of an economy of a country should be to produce well-being for its people by producing useful things.
Well-being.
Basically, that's the goal. So money, as Brother Shakara said, should just be a tool. Once we have a vision, we now have to think about how we can use that tool to further our vision. I saw a discussion about the Vodou spiritual system one day, and the Vodou priest asked this question. He said, look at a knife. Is it a gun, a weapon? Is it a tool? What do you do with a knife? You can cook food. You can do something useful, or you can kill your neighbor. You see, you decide what this tool will do. And it's the same, for example, with the army. There are people in the anarchist community. Those guys exist, and they say, we don't want any government. We don't want any army. We will do everything ourselves, and so on. The thing is, the army is a tool. You can have a repressive army that is killing its own people, and you can have an army that is there to protect the people. You can have a people's army where each people is trained and doesn't fear a soldier because he's also a soldier. You see, so the army is a tool, and in the same way, money is just a tool, and we have to think about how we can use this tool to produce more useful things for our people. And for example, there are many experimental ideas, and usually they sound very good when they have not been tested.
Yes.
For example, even the communist country like the Soviet Union, China, they try to get rid of the money, the currency system. They tried, and they went back to having a currency. Because when doing the practical test of doing things without money, it was very, very hard and not practical. So it doesn't mean that it's impossible, but there are many good reasons to think that it is very, very, very difficult. So if we don't have confidence and a huge amount of reasons of why attempts will work in the future, better not try, because when you fail, it means that you are creating an opening for people outside to come and crush you. You don't have that many that many tries, that attempts that you can do. You see,
that's right.
We're gonna get deeper into this now, I'm sure, because brother M.A. Brown has joined the panel. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot, Kings and Queens. So stay tuned. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna go deeper into this rabbit hole, so to speak. Go ahead, brother M.A.
Greetings, my brothers. Hope everyone's good. Yeah, man.
Greetings.
Now that you say, sorry, brother Emmy, I don't want to interrupt you, but you said that greetings, my brothers, yeah, and it reminds me that I did put the call out last week for the feminine energy to enter the space. So I'm gonna do it again, yeah. Cause we like their own woman, you know what I mean? And these are conversations that I love to have with sisters. So yeah, feel free. I'm putting a special call out to any of my sisters listening. If you feel free to come through the conversation and share your input. We look forward to receiving it. Go ahead, M.A. Brown.
Yeah, man. And I'm going to try and put out a call specifically as well for future broadcasts and that, man. So
yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, man. So yeah, it's very stimulating, man. IC3, like every now and again, yeah, you drop some stuff that
I'm trying.
A couple of weeks ago, you did the same thing, man. Just blowing, you know what I mean? Just blowing the door wide open. So yeah, there was a few things that I couldn't really crystallize in my mind, and I'm sure once I watch the thing back or have conversations with any of you lot outside of the broadcast, I'm sure they will come to light. The one question I did have that I was able to kind of articulate is, does money need to be used in all areas of people activity? Where is it most useful and where is it not necessary at all?
It's a very good question.
Good question.
Excellent question. Go on, Abiola. You're the guest, you know, so you get first. Get first part of this, you know?
All right, that's a very interesting question. That means it's a hard question. I don't think that money needs to be used in every part of an economy or a country. There are many systems actually where we don't use money. You see, for example, when we work in a company, if we do something for our colleague, we don't ask for money, but we exchange something, you see? And this system can be seen in a lot of ways. For example, in Africa, when people were doing agricultural work, they just exchanged the produce of their work and they pay taxes in rice, in cassava and stuff, and it worked without money. So it's not a requirement to have money in a system. For example, when there is total war and people are being rationed, so there is a limited amount of stuff that you can use or buy. Often you don't buy them with money, you get tickets. You see, you get tickets and you have a limited amount of tickets every month of every day to get some food, to get some rice and stuff. So are those tickets money or not? You see?
Right.
And that is where we need to get back to the fundamentals, because as I said, money obscures things, the term obscures things. We need to look at the usage. What is it used for? As I said, it's used for measuring the value of things. If you need to measure the value of different things when you are exchanging. For example, I have a book and this book is not available anywhere else. I am the only person on the world having this book. And you want me to give you this book. I will ask you something in exchange.
Yeah.
And we'll need to agree on the value of those things. If you say to me, I have a necklace from my mother and it has a sentimental value that is very high for me, I give it to you. Maybe it won't have the same value for me, you see? So how can we equalize the value of my book and the value of your necklace? You
Right.
see? If we don't have a system that puts a unit on everything that we want to exchange. So when we go back to this fundamental use, now we can go and look at, okay, for this type of exchange that we want to do we need to measure the things very accurately on a wide range of things? If not, maybe we don't need to use money.
Point taken, bro. This is I like this conversation because there's no answers, if that makes sense. It's things to work out, and this is actually part of the process, you know. When you study all of our leaders and our movements and our revolutions, even those that achieve state power, and I want to come back to this idea of state power because we talk about money a lot, but I want to come to this state power idea. But all of them, they didn't have all the answers straight away. Yeah, there was a lot that they had to work out in the process. Yeah. You know, I'm minded about Sajafo Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana and Lumumba in Congo and Maurice Bishop in Grenada. Yeah, you know, they had to meet every day to work out how to organize a society and, you know, how to distribute resources and, you know, how to implement certain policies. And so these none of these ideas are, but the important thing is that they engage the ideas. Yeah. And that's the most important thing. And I think through and the answer that is applicable to now may not be applicable in 10 years' time. That's the reality. But we may have an answer now that we may not be able to implement now, but will become applicable in 10 years' time. So that's an interesting point right there. I don't know if you had anything to follow up there, Emma, before I go on to something else.
Could I address that question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the key word here is this word interest, as it applies to M.A. Brown's question, the word interest. So this is how I see it. You see, I see that there's two types of banks, and a lot of people don't understand the two fundamental types of bank. There's a bank that grows and is developed by a community, by people, by what they do, and it's a bit like the village square or the town square, where people come to meet, and the values of the town, and knowing each other and knowing each other's faces, and the shared religious or cultural habits are also there, and a bank that comes up from that, the bankers would share the same cultural values as the people. So the bank is lending to help distribute currency around the community, and the interest is for the people. The interest is in the community. Yes, so the actions produce interest. Because you're talking about money, and the M.A. Brown's question: do we need money in all things? The mere fact that you're doing, sometimes you just do things by word of mouth. It's in the interest of you both. It's in the interest of building trust within that community and making it strong. So that's one type of bank. The other type of bank is which is now most powerful that we're ruled under, is where you have the people that are head of the bank. You don't know them. You don't know what their cultural values are. You don't know what their interest, what they're going to do with the interests. Do you understand? You don't know what their interest is. All you know is that you put some money in there, and they pay you so-called interest, but you don't know what share they're taking for themselves. So that I just leave that point. Does that help address that your question, or is it?
Well, it opens another one though. which is the concept of interest. Yeah,
there you go.
some people have an issue with the idea of interest. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And they associate with things like usury and all them something.
There
So
you go.
we got to look at this concept of interest. But yeah, maybe today's not that. But go ahead, mate.
Just something that I watched last week. It was a Facebook the video of I don't know what you would call it, but Zuckerberg's exposition or something like that in front of the US Senate, and I was watching it, and obviously it's about Facebook and Facebook's dealings and all this kind of stuff and whatever, but really it was about the finance system, because Facebook are now trying to create their own cryptocurrency.
That's right, yeah.
And it was very interesting just to watch, well, first of all, to hear some of the people then from the Senate speak about the things that we know of, but has been hidden for such a long time in terms of their hegemony over the world. The way that they were speaking about the threat to their system, to Mark Zuckerberg, and making him know, you better make sure that you don't try a thing, because we're trying to do our own thing. That's what they threatened him. They basically threatened him in the Senate. And it was really interesting to see that, because I've never really seen that be spoken about in such terms. You get me? That's just something that I think the people them should watch that. You might learn one or two things as well. So
what's the link? What's it called again?
I would just say Zuckerberg US Senate cryptocurrency or something like that. I think it's called what's the currency called? It's called the Libra or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. US Senate.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Kings and queens, we're gonna wrap up soon because we know say late in France, you know what I'm saying? So we want to make sure Abiola can get up for work tomorrow.
I don't have any deadline.
You should have said that, bro. Now we're gonna keep you whole night. You know what I'm saying? Be here till 9 o'clock in the morning. What's it? All right. Right. I want to share something very quickly. And then I want to talk about this idea of seizing state power. Yeah. So this is by the way, first of all, the reparations march, reparations rebellion groundings takes place this coming Saturday, the 1st of Messiah, 7 a.m. Yeah, I saw on Arguan. Yeah, 7 a.m. Yeah, man will be down there still. So I look forward to seeing you down there on Saturday, May the 1st of Messiah. So this is taken from a paper on called Honest Accounts, 2017, 203 billion out, how the world profits from Africa's wealth, and so as you can see, the 160 billion that goes in is investments and foreign aid and all them kind of something there, but the world extracts 41 billion each year, which amounts to, in total, value of resources and everything, 203 billion. Let me read a section of this so that we understand the thing properly. It says Africa is rich in potential mineral wealth, skilled workers, booming new businesses, and biodiversity. By the way, some of that 203 billion is also labor, and what they call brain drain, where we're all leaving the continent. All right. Its people should thrive, its economies prosper, yet many people living in Africa's, I don't know why it says 47, but anyway, countries remain trapped in poverty, whilst much of the continent's wealth is being extracted by those outside of it. Research for this report calculates the movement of financial resources into and out of Africa and some key costs imposed on Africa by the rest of the world. We find that the countries of Africa are collectively net creditors. You see that? Net creditors, all right? So all this talk about how Africa is, why can't it get right? All this money that Europe is pumping into Africa and China's pumping into Africa. No, Africa is a net creditor to the rest of the world to the tune of 41 billion. In 2015. Thus, much more wealth is leaving the world's most impoverished continent than is entering it. So the balance between obviously the 203 billion and the 160 something billion is the 41.3 billion. African countries receive, that says it already. So I'm going to just go to the bullet points. Yeah. No, actually, sorry. Yet 203 billion was taken from Africa either directly, mainly through corporations repatriating profits, which is what Brother Abiola was talking about at the beginning of his presentation. Yeah. And by illegally moving money out of the continent or by cost imposed by the rest of the world through climate change. Bullet point: African countries receive around 19 billion in aid in the form of grants, but over 3 times that much, $68 billion is taken out in capital flight, mainly by multinational companies deliberately misreporting the value of their imports and exports to reduce tax. Yes, whilst Africans receive 31 billion in personal remittances from overseas, multinational companies operating on the continent repatriate a similar amount, 32 billion. So that means when they say remittances, that's the money that we Africans in the diaspora send back home. Yeah. But the corporations that operate on the continent repatriate more of more than that to France and Britain and America. Yeah. Among other countries. Yeah. So it's about 32 billion in profits to their home countries each year. African governments received 32.8 billion in loans in 2015, but paid 18 billion in debt, interest and principal payments, with the overall level of debt rising rapidly. An estimated 29 billion a year is being stolen from Africa in illegal logging, fishing, and trade in wildlife plants. Yeah. So I just wanted to put all of that into context. Yeah. Some of what Brother Abiola was saying into context, and this document, Honest Accounts 2017. Yeah. If you Google that, you'll be able to pull out this document. Now, having said all of that, my brothers, yeah, yet to get a sister on. All right. You spoke about seizing state power, Brother Abiola, and this is a simple statement, but very difficult to enact in real time. And I'm minded that when you were given, in terms of a starting point, and you said, well, break down the numbers. One significant country is Nigeria. Another significant country is Congo. Another significant country is Ethiopia in terms of just population. But it occurs to me that these are 3 of the most difficult countries, yeah, to operate in and organize in on a Pan-African basis, especially if one is trying to go for state power. Yeah. So, my brother, let's talk about this, because the Asajefo in his book, The Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, certainly put forward this case, but he speaks about it from the basis of grassroots organizing and a grassroots organizing network, which he referred to as the All Africa People's Revolutionary Party across the continent. So how realistic is this goal of seizing state power? And should we be, as you said, in terms of the isolation of Zimbabwe, yeah, the isolation of Ghana under Nkrumah, the isolation which he tried to overcome through aligning and organizing with Modibo Keita and Sekou, yeah, in the Ghana-Guinea Mali Union, the isolation of Congo, the isolation of Haiti, the isolation of Grenada, yeah. So should we be looking to see state power in a state as it is currently constituted, or should that, from its inception, be a cross-border, multinational, quote-unquote, agenda?
Thank you for a question. Against a very hard question, but we had Baba Kwame Ture. He had this saying that the rougher the sea and the better the swimmer, something like that. So we need to learn how to swim. You see.
That's right.
There was also this book that I read. I think it was the Hagakure, something about the samurai, the Bushido, something like that. And in the Hagakure, there was this phrase, and I found it very, very, very powerful. I don't remember exactly, but I will just give you the core of it. they were saying that a samurai is not concerned about the probability of success of his cause.
Right.
Because when you start to think about when will this work, is it really feasible, is it really realistic, you will conclude that it is too difficult and you will start to just capitulate. You see? So he was saying that the samurai is just concerned about his duty. It is not will it work, it's more about do I have to do it. It's like when you have someone who get into your house and start to threaten your family. You don't have to be there and start to make calculations about, well, is it really a fair fight? We have a chance. You have to defend your family, you see.
I take your point.
So that's the first thing.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, I think it's feasible. Why I think it's feasible? For the same reason Papa Garvey was saying that other people did it and we got to do it.
Yes.
And we did it in the past. So all the people that we see, the Chinese, the Koreans and stuff, they were in some really, really deep shit. They have very, very big problems and they were able to overcome them. So I don't know what will be the fundamental reason for us to not be able to do that. You see, there's no fundamental reason. Now there are difficulties, and I agree. There are huge difficulties. But one thing I think we need to see is that on the African continent today, and it's the same thing in Haiti and in Jamaica, there is no credible alternative to Pan-Africanism. I mean, you can go on the street, discuss with people. No one trusts the politicians. No one. So people are waiting for something new, but they are also waiting for something effective.
Yes.
So I believe that today, new organizations that are serious about improving the life of the people right now, but saying straight that the end goal is to take power and control and lead the country, but start doing the work right now, they will succeed. I mean, do you see the enthusiasm that people have for Brother Kemiseba, for example? People are rising up. They are waiting for things to happen. So I'm not saying that it will be easy, but what I'm saying is that people are waiting for it. Now it needs to be done effectively. That's the only difference. And look at a country like Ivory Coast, because I come from there, Côte d'Ivoire. So
another one of the difficult countries, brother Abiola. Ivory Coast is at the center of French imperialism. In West Africa. So
just let me give me the example of President Laurent Gbagbo. I'm not a follower because he's not a Pan-Africanist. But one thing we can see is that this man has been in the opposition for like 20, 30 years. I don't know. It was the main opponent to the French stooge that was there called Félix Houphouët-Boigny. And this man doesn't have money. He's a simple teacher. What he had was courage. Meaning that when there was a demonstration, he was the leader of a party and it was before everyone. It was first in the lines, first to get arrested, first to go to prison, first to suffer, you see. And people started to see and think, this man, we maybe not agree with everything he says, but this is a man of value, you see. And he won the election against people who had huge coffers of money, who were supported by friends and stuff. And that is why France never forgave him, you see. So it is entirely possible, entirely possible. But as I said, it takes many decades, and let's be clear, it takes money, you see. That is one thing that we don't want to talk about, but it takes a lot of money. It doesn't take billions of dollars,
Yeah.
But it takes money. It means you have to build structure. We need to have people walking on the street. We need to create stuff on the ground.
Right.
We need to do a campaign and stuff. But
Right.
none of that is rocket science. You see,
No, it's not.
just work.
What I'm getting from what you're saying though is that maybe it's not the immediate goal, if that makes sense. The immediate goal is to create something that can facilitate that goal.
What do you call immediate?
That's a good question. No, why I say that is I'm differentiating between that you say 5-year plan, 10-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to take many decades, then there are stages. However, with the example that you used with Brother Kemi Seba, it's not impossible that we could see some movement there in our lifetime, based upon the levels of organizing that we're seeing, and not just in one country. You know what I'm saying? So that's not impossible. But then the question then becomes, Brother Abiola, yeah, because you and I both know that you said violence is the primary means for implementing and maintaining neo-colonialism, yeah, and we know that once this movement of people begins to show its head. In fact, before that, they're doing it now. We're dying. We're getting shot. So maybe that answers the question. We're gonna dead anyway. So we might as well dead fighting. Yeah. In that regard, yeah. But the point I'm making is that if we look at places like Congo and places like Nigeria, yeah, we're talking about places that the whole system is, and maybe Auntie Affion, yeah, will have some experience with this. I'm gonna formally invite Auntie Affion on. Yeah, the panel is yours. Yeah, if you want to come through and shed some insight and wisdom on this particular subject right here, we'll be glad to receive it. The where I'm going with this is that effectively we're talking about challenging our neo-colonial governments right now. We're talking about removing them. Yes. That's the conversation that we're having at the moment, yeah? And we're talking about institutions that are backed, as you've rightly outlined, by not just militaries, but complex systems, yeah, of government and finance and economy and these kinds of things, yeah? And so to wrestle state power from them, it's not rocket science, but it's not simple either. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the means of what it's not simple, yeah. It's a and the level of organizing that it would take to have institutions that are ready to take over the reins, yeah. It's not a simple task, yeah. I'm right now, I'm not even sure I have a question. I'm just, you know.
Can I just add a quick comment?
Yes.
A quick comment is just that this is precisely because it's not a simple task.
Yes.
That we need to focus on and work on it right now.
Right now. I love it.
Can I say?
One second, Auntie Affion once said, you know, that she's not into this non-governmental organization thing. We're not a non-governmental organization. We're a potentially governmental organization. I like
exactly.
And I want to popularize that terminology. Potentially PNG, potentially governmental organization. Go ahead.
Yes. You actually that last thing you just said. Made me have to say this just before I was going to say what I was going to say, but it's very important. When you said potentially, right? Did you know that when Hitler moved into France and the French leadership ran, they set up in England, and it's called a government in made me forget the term now.
In exile.
In exile. That's it. Government in exile.
Now I hear you. I realize you weren't listening to my first presentation that I delivered.
Yeah, man, I remember that as well.
Huh?
No, you talking about Papa Garvey, innit?
Yeah. So the reason why this series is on is because in 1920, the UNAACL instituted a government in exile.
There you go.
There you go.
The French. Right.
Yes,
So before the French did it. Yes, right.
Yes.
You know? And so that point is very, very important. So we've got to operate like a government in exile. You've got to set up this whole system and operate. You might be just running it from your living rooms or from your house or whatever, but you've got to operate in the same way as a
I
government.
like your thinking. I like your thinking. And I'm minded that the concept of government in exile doesn't just apply to Africans outside of Africa, because political exile is a thing.
Yes.
Yeah? So maybe that's one of the moves, in the sense of the fact that we develop a Pan-African government in exile.
Yes, that's the way.
That is so. And so I like the last year in October, I went to a conference in London that was put on by Nkrumahists. And they were teaching about Nkrumah and trying, evoking a lot of his policies and his principles in terms of how we can develop on them today. My brethren Bonchi had said that he can't understand, because his party, which is now not banned in Ghana, which it was banned until up until about 15 years ago, maybe. He doesn't understand that why they don't lose in style, in the sense of the fact that if they're gonna be a force, they might as well be a force to be reckoned with. And even if they can't win right now, they should lose in style. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So on every issue, the CPP policy should be clear, and they should be challenging every government issue. And so whenever the president or the minister of the opposition delivers a presentation, there should be a CPP position. Yeah. Paper and speech to come right after it on whatever the issue is. Right. So I'm saying it's, and I agree with that philosophy, in the sense of the fact that we operate like a potentially governmental organization, that whatever the government is doing, you know what I'm saying, that there is something to say about it. There's a mirror to it, if that makes sense. Like, go ahead.
It has to happen.
Yes. And so it's not about the size. You don't have to get a big building. It could be just people moving from one house to the next, from one city to the other, but the paperwork is tight.
Yes.
And you run that way. Yeah.
Go ahead, brother Abiola.
Yes, I just wanted to say that there are spaces of freedom in quote, even in the most difficult countries. So I'm not saying that we get there, we have a Pan-African flag and say, well, this is the revolution today is starting.
Right.
That would be a very bad way, obviously. But the thing I'm saying is that everything we do has to be connected with the end goal, and it has to be clear in the minds of the people. That you were talking about losing in style. You reminded me of an elder called Diallo Diop.
Right.
And you see, he is not related to Sheikh Anta Diop on the bloodline, but he is the one who is leading Sheikh Anta Diop's political party today.
Right.
So a lot of people do not know that Diop created 3 political parties in Senegal, because everything he was doing was in this goal of making Africa powerful, and to do that, he needed to be at the government level. He knew that there were no other ways. All the things we are talking about should be taught in schools, in universities, everywhere. But they won't be, because we have bad government. So we can't escape from this goal. There is just no way. And as soon as we have that in mind, we can see that, okay, maybe it will take time. Maybe there are some things we won't be able to say at the beginning. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we are on the ground. We have a political organization, and the people we talk to, we explain to them that we are building this school today, and what we want is to build many schools like that in all over the country. But to do that, one day you will have to support us to be in government. And the people, we say, okay, those guys, we have seen them at work. And sometime there will be opportunities, because that is one thing we have to understand, is that what we are talking about is revolutionary. And revolution is not just about violence and stuff. It's about opportunity, because basically all revolutions are impossible. That is, if you come 5 years or 10 years before the revolution, you look at the situation, you are like, okay, it's impossible.
Right.
Things will never change. You see? Look at Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, when Sankara was assassinated, he was assassinated by Blaise Compaoré. I think in 1987. And Blaise Compaoré stayed in power, I think, until 2014, something like that, like 20 or 30 years. And when you talked to people from Burkina Faso during Blaise Compaoré reign, people thought that it will last forever. Forever. And one day he wanted to bring to present himself to the next elections, and people say, we don't want you anymore. There is no explanation for why people at this point were so fed up that they were willing to go on the street and take bullets to make Compaoré go. You see, and they did it. It was not something that you could predict, but on the long term, you know that people will get fed up at certain points and there will be opportunities for change. And the thing is, it is not when the opportunity is opening, it is not when the door is opening that you start organizing and start planning. You have to have the things ready.
That's
you
right.
See? This is why you start now, even if things look bleak. But the thing is, there will be opportunities and you will be prepared.
Yeah, and we have to. There's a very real example of this. And by the way, Auntie Affion, if you listen, I'm not sure if you might have heard before, but this conversation that we're having right now, I'm sure you'll be able to shed some light on, because it's not easy organizing among our people anywhere, and trying to challenge government and them kind of things. There's serious business, and there are things that will happen. For example, we had a very real experience of that over here recently. Oh, by the way, yeah, I'm going to come back to that. The brother Kemi Seba was here in December, 2019, and he spoke, and he went back to Burkina Faso, before going traveling to Benin, and whilst he was there, he spoke to a gathering of approximately 900 people, I made to understand, and then he was arrested following the gathering, along with another local activist whose name I'm forgetting at the moment. He was arrested, and as he was arrested, Emmanuel Macron was in Mali addressing the Mali press alongside, what's his name? The head of state in Mali. His name's got out my head.
IBK, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita.
That's the one, right. And he and addressing the rise in anti-French sentiments among the French-speaking West Africa, and threatening to withdraw the French troops and leaving them to deal with the jihadis, in Mali. If them not the French the Mali government and the governments in West Africa didn't deal with this, anti-French sentiment. Kemi Seba is in jail, at this time, right? But what he really came for was to go to Ivory Coast to sign the deal that you were referencing, in terms of ensuring that the French-speaking West African nations continue to tie their currency to the French euro. I had the opportunity to speak to an AU official the other day, whose name I'm forgetting, right? He's from Ghana, and I put this question to him about the fact that, is it possible that the governments in Africa can unify to a degree and put some bite behind some of the bark, so to speak, in terms of, like, let's say, for example, the reparations case, you know what I'm saying? Like, some international cry in terms of reparations and kind of things there. And his response to me was, in order to make certain demands, you need to have developed certain levels of political power. yeah, I'm paraphrasing, right? There's no weight behind the demand because when we haven't amassed that kind of power yet. And it was a very interesting statement, yeah. It was an extreme, because in a sense it was an admission of defeat. In a sense, it was an admission of defeat, yeah. And in a sense, it was a diplomatic answer because he's an ambassador, and that's what ambassadors do, yeah. But I'm only saying that to say that the condition that we're in at the moment suggests to me that 9 out of 10 of us, if put in the position of president or prime minister, would produce the same results. Pick anyone off the ground, yeah, we produce the same results.
Sure.
Yeah. So there does need to be some long standing, consistent organizing over a period of time. Yeah, like what you're saying in terms of producing different results. But my brother, we've got a question here. Some sisters came late and they want to know, what is Kamitism? Yeah, it sounds weird to them.
Can I just say something just before you do that?
Yeah.
It occurs to me that excuse me, man. It occurs to me that the people the populations, the everyday people in Africa are the answer to that particular question. And the demand would really come from them primarily. And I think part of the problem is, even propaganda. Yeah, there's certain amounts of propaganda that can be delivered to any one nation through TV. How many people have got a TV? How many people can read? Like that. So that's a for me, in terms of demand. Like, there's people now in Congo that don't know that the Western governments are coming with vaccines and all this type of stuff, and they cannot oppose it because they don't know it's coming, first and foremost. And when it comes, they won't know what it is. You understand? And so we need to definitely ramp up and even create those avenues of communication to be able to actually institute that kind of mentality. But anyway, go ahead.
Yes, bro. So just give a brief explanation of Kamitism for our sisters who came late.
Sure. So it's very simple. If you know what is Afrocentricity or being Afrocentric or Afrocentrist, it's basically the same thing. It's trying to be African in everything we do and put Africa first when we speak about politics, we speak about economics, everything. What it's called Kamitism, it's because we use the word Kemet as the root. So Kemet is ancient Egypt, and that is how the people of ancient Egypt call themselves. They call their land Kemet, meaning the land of the black people. And there is some discussion about how Kemet was properly pronounced. So some people say it was not Kemet, and it was Kamita, because in most African languages, there is open vowels at the end. So they say it was probably something different. So they suggested Kamita, for example. So this is one of the popular words. I don't think it's popular in the UK, but in France, for example, a lot of people use Kamita. And they also use Kemet, but you will also find the word Kamita.
In the English-speaking world, Kamit is used, but Kamita is not necessarily used, no.
Okay, yeah. So Kamitism comes from this version, Kamita. So that's why we are using that. Yeah.
It's the defining ideology according to who our people are. But I do encourage you to produce some literature on the concept of Kamitism, Robert Abiola. You know what I'm saying? So
thanks. But I wanted to stress a point, and I really think that as Pan-Africanists, we have a problem. Really, we have a problem, because before becoming a Pan-Africanist, I read a lot of stuff from other traditions, and the things I was seeing was that, for example, the communists, they are serious on the political level. You see, it means that if you are communist, you have an end goal. The end goal is to build a communist society. So that means a communist state. You see, and then once you have this goal, you start to put together the path that will lead you to the end goal. And you see that in order to build a communist society, you need to have a communist government. And in order to have a communist government, okay, you need a political organization, let's say a political party. And then once you have your political party, you need to think about the strategy. Can we go through the elections? Do we need to use another means and stuff? But all of that reflection, of that thinking, problem solving comes first from having the goal clear in your head.
Yes.
If the goal is of this vision is not the most important thing to you, you won't get to the problem solving part. It will just stay in speeches, and it will just stay a vision. And that is why I see that in the Pan-Africanist community, there is this problem, because when I came, I heard a lot of speeches, you see, a lot. And I didn't see the plan. You see, our people were saying, we need to educate ourselves. We need to teach our children. And I was like, but you know, in how many schools the government controls? How many schools do you think we will be building outside the government?
Yes,
just put the numbers together. If the government has 10,000 schools, and we are able to build with great difficulties 100 schools, what will be the outcome? The outcome when the 10,000 schools will have produced millions of zombies that will be fighting against a few hundred Afro-conscious people. It will be defeat. You see, it will be defeat. So at the basic level, we need to focus on this thing that state power is a solution. It's not an easy solution. It's not painless, but this is the only solution. And when we have that clear, we will see that we will be focusing on problem solving now. But that needs to be put first.
I will say, I will say that I am speaking at the RBG Centennial Conference on the 8th and 9th of Messiah next month. And one of the subjects that I'll be speaking on is African-centered education. And developing strategies and means for developing expertise in African-centered education. Because one of the things that we're going to have to do is enskill our people with the tools that we need to build the institution that we're going to build. And so there's some work that I've started in regards to that. And I want to begin to promote it more. So the whole point that the end goal is to have an actual course that takes people through, and at the end of it, you are qualified as an educator, within the African-centered tradition, at any level. So university, secondary, primary school, you know what I'm saying, wherever it is, that's the, and we have to get there, because before, it's not even just about getting the school and the building. We need the people that are inspired, that see the vision, and that have the skills to fulfill the vision, to plan, you know what I'm saying, and that kind of thing. So I see what you're saying completely. I do want to just do a particular, sorry, make your point very quickly, brother IC3, and I'm gonna
just quickly. Okay. I see the way to deal with the state is that you mustn't think of this in terms of money, because money is in two forms. There's money and there's a currency. The currency is a circulation. It's like the current, and current water behaves differently from solid things. Therefore, if value is going up in one place, value is going down in another place. So
in Marxist theory, they call that unequal development or something like that.
Is it okay?
Uneven development, uneven.
Okay, so to go back to what Abiola was saying about, well, okay, if we spin one school or 10 schools or 100 schools, but the government's got how many did you say? 10,000 schools. It's not. It doesn't work that way. You got to have a strategy that's dealing with currency, and what happens is that by the manipulation of the energy of currency, when you build a school, you're moving into you're taking a larger slice of the pie. So what is the government schools will start going down. They start producing less because they think that your schools are better. The people like your schools. So every time you build 2 schools, maybe one government school closes down and the people start going to your schools. You see, it's like a flow. It's not a race on building the schools. It's just like it's like the Catholic Church and the Catholic schools. People like to go to Catholic schools, don't they? They like to send their children. Oh, if you get your child into a Catholic school, but this is not a Catholic country. Oh, that's the point I was making.
Most definitely. Give thanks for that, brother IC3. Right. I want to deal with it. One question from the chat, but then we're going to deal with the issue of culture. Then we're going to wrap up because we've been on for like 5 hours now. Yeah. So, and by the way, I think I've managed to salvage the first hour. Great. What I'm going to do is download this section because for those who are late, the video cut out at a certain point. So I had to start a whole new video. So I'm going to try and download this one, put them together and re-upload it tomorrow. Yeah. So everybody can watch one time. But I'll leave this one up for now anyway. But yeah, I may not get back the other video on YouTube. So brother Abiola, you might need to tell me which part of it to edit out. It may be the part which is out, yeah. But yeah, we'll talk about that. But I'm trying to figure out if there was something that was said that may have inspired this comment. I can't think of it, but it's important anyway, so we're going to address it. Sister Jarina Starr says, without black female leaders, it won't work. And she's referring to Kamitism, yeah? Is Kamitism hostile to the idea of black woman leadership, Brother Abiola?
Of course not. Of course not. So, for example, my own organization called Nation Kamit is led by a woman, a brave woman. So I don't think there's any problem.
This woman. Let's have this woman.
Beloved sister Mary Oku.
Yes.
So there's obviously no problem. And from what I've seen is that when we have women in the organizations, things tend to get more practical. So we can't just sit down and speak and dream, and we get practical. So yeah, they are a fundamental component of our struggle. And I don't know if you remember, but in Chekonsta Diop book, the basis for a federal state of Africa, he put forth this idea that we could even have, if we have a parliament, we can even have, instead of having a Senate and the House of Representatives, we can have the male parliament and the women parliament, you see? So people have equal input in the destiny of the nation. So that's a fundamental point.
You said that when women are in leadership, things tend to get more practical. Is that because the women don't spend 5 hours online having
yeah.
Yes, kings and queens. You don't know. All right, let's. I want to, Brother Abiola, bring up that quote from that Diop quote that you quoted in the presentation about the religion thing, and just read it one more time for me, please, if I may. It's a long quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But because obviously the book is not in English, so I have not read this book.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna need you to send me that quote, bro. Please, yeah. Have you typed it in English yet?
No, I don't think it is in English because it's like a compilation of articles that was written when he was young. So
but I'm saying when you read, was you just translating from the French, or was you reading it in English?
I think I already translated in English first.
Good. So send that to me, please, yeah. And even if you typed it in French, send it to me anyway, because I can do Google Translate and all them something, yeah. But
all right.
But it's an excellent quote. So read it for me one more time, and then we'll end on this point.
All right. So here it is. The seriousness of the situation. I will just cut my mic. No, I think what I need to do. I don't know if you have an echo.
No, I don't.
Okay. The seriousness of the situation can be seen in the following figures. According to the latest communications made to the Academy of Science, so it was in 1957, the majority of Africans, 85 million, practice ancestral worship. we would say a half-forgotten monotheism. 28 million are Muslims, 15 million are Catholics, and 4 million are Protestants. Christians and Muslims have a liturgy, are organized, and can carry out religious propaganda. Both are making feverish efforts to convert the 85 million Africans they call pagans. Thus, the westernization or the definitive orientalization of Africa is linked to the success of one or the other. It is reasonable to think that an African federal government will give equal arms to the proponents of ancestral religion by provoking an ecumenical council and its priests to allow the creation of a hierarchy, a better adapted liturgy, the formation and the education of a caste of priests on a continental scale, the deepening and normalization of the dogma on the basis of ancestral monotheism. In doing so, the future federal government will protect the continent from any new insidious penetration from abroad and will protect Africans from cultural alienation. We don't hear you, brother. You have your mic on mute.
So I was saying this is an excellent quote here. And give thanks for bringing that to the conversation. I've had a lot of conversations with Muslim brothers and sisters recently, and a lot of them challenge. They don't like Chancellor Williams and destruction of black civilization at all, but they like Sheikh Anta Diop because he gives a little bit more, credibility to the role of Islam in Africa. Although he's also very critical. Yeah, a man who effectively raised a Muslim, although he wasn't particularly given to religion. Okay, yeah. So. And the idea is that when you're talking about, I want to address the issue of culture, yeah, and culture annihilation and cultural development. And one of the things that I said in one conversation with a brother is when we look at our African spiritual traditions, the development and the evolution that any spiritual tradition that comes with any spiritual tradition over an extended period of time hasn't been able to take place because our growth has been retarded, yeah, because for centuries these traditions have been under attack, yeah, and so it just so once we free up the dignity and pride of the tradition, it will naturally develop itself. And I'm just minded that Sheikh Anta Diop is saying the same thing. You know what I'm saying? That once we're able to operate in a liberated sense, naturally, our political organization will draw from these traditions, and it will evolve and develop in certain ways. Now, I wouldn't use the word dogma, and there's a couple of other terms that I wouldn't use, but it brought me to mind Amilcar Cabral. The book is called Unity and Struggle, and in it there is a chapter from a speech that he delivered called National Liberation and Culture, and it's one of the most brilliant things I've read, yeah, on the subject of culture. All right, I'm going to read 2 paragraphs from it, yeah, and we're gonna close on this discussion of culture and the role that it plays in a revolutionary movement, yeah. Baba Amilcar Cabral says, in fact, to take up arms to dominate a people is above all to take up arms to destroy or at least neutralize and to paralyze their cultural life. Yeah, this is the essence of oppression, is what he's saying. For as long as part of that people can have a cultural life, foreign domination cannot be sure of its perpetuation. At a given moment, depending on internal and external factors determining the evolution of the society in question, cultural resistance, indestructible, may take on new political, economic, and armed forms in order fully to contest foreign domination. I'm going to skip some paragraphs and I'm going to go to this next one. It says the value of culture as an element of resistance to foreign domination lies in the fact that culture is the vigorous manifestation on the ideological or idealist level of the material and historical reality of the fruit of a people's history and a determinant of history. By positive or negative influence it exerts on the evolution of relations between man and his environment and among men or human groups within a society, as well as different societies. Ignorance of this fact might explain the failure of several attempts at foreign domination, as well as the failure of some national liberation movements. Yeah. So he's just simply emphasizing the importance of culture and the fact that essentially what oppression is destroying the cultural life of the people. And in another sense, he relates it to economics in terms of the creative flow that comes from culture is what creates the people's economic system, right? In that kind of sense.
Definitely.
Right. So you touched on and I've heard you deal with this before, IC3, in terms of culture being the actual primary currency. Yeah,
that's right. That's what puts the value.
That's
what the value
from. Yeah,
that's right.
So can we just delve into this a bit more, brother Abiola? In terms, because when we talk about culture, people think that we're talking about airy fairy, like you were saying, you know, meditation, yoga, pour some libation, and once all Africans are pouring libation, we'll be free. Yeah, that's what people think that we mean.
Yeah.
What do we really mean, Abiola?
I think this is a very, very, very interesting question, and
yes.
there are so many ways to talk about that.
Yes.
First thing, I think I read the quote of Baba Diop differently.
Okay.
That is, the way I'm reading it is saying that without a Pan-Africanist government,
yes,
the African religion will lose.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Yeah. I think that was one thing he was saying. And the thing is, he was right, because that is what happened. Today, the majority of African people are Muslims or Christians. So that is this thing about government. So I will play the role of a government fanatic today. So that is this idea of government. The second thing, and I think it's very important, is that culture evolves.
Yes.
And this is a very difficult point, because today we can say, if you look at Africa, you will see that African culture is 91% Muslim and Christian, because that is what people are doing daily. You see, they are not doing libation. They are not talking about the ancestors. They think it's witchcraft. So their daily culture is actually foreign. So what we are trying to do is to tell to our people, look, we have something better that is ours, and we need to go back to it and maybe change some ways, but we need to fundamentally go back to it.
Yes.
So actually we are trying to change the current culture for a better one that is based on the original one. And it's a very, very, very difficult task.
Definitely.
But we have to acknowledge it, is that the African culture we are talking about is not what people are experiencing today. Most of the people, if they hear our discussion, they will think we are crazy. That is not what they are talking about. My mother, she's a very deep Christian. She won't understand our discussion today.
Right.
You see, so it's a huge work. And that is why I also focus on the government political side. Why? Because we don't need everyone to go back to African spirituality right now.
Right.
We need the leaders to go back to African spirituality. That is very important, because that is how Christianity and Islam worked.
True.
They first converted the leaders, and then everyone follows more or less.
Yeah.
So,
they either converted the leaders or they installed the leaders.
Yeah, or they installed the leaders. So they started at the top. So we can't convert everyone right now because we don't even have the means to do it. We can't fight with the churches, the mosque. It's impossible. That is why we have to find where we can get leverage.
Yes.
And this idea of leverage is very important.
Yeah, you said it when you said we have to change the current culture. You said, listen to that, currency culture.
Read the last sentence of the Diop quote again, please, Brother Abiola. Just read the last sentence to me.
Of Diop?
Yes, that the last sentence there.
In doing so, the federal government, in doing so, the future federal government will protect the continent from any new insidious penetration from abroad and will protect Africans from cultural alienation.
The idea of cultural alienation, or is it alienation or annihilation?
No, alienation, like alien, yeah.
Alienation,
yeah.
Right, and this is so. To me, he's equating the negation of African culture and spirituality with cultural alienation. Yeah. He's equating the imposition of foreign religions with cultural alienation.
Yeah.
And so he's suggesting, therefore, that a Pan-African government will create the environment for African culture and therefore spiritual systems to flourish in natural ways. So I'm understanding that. Brother M.A., did you have a point on this subject before we move towards a close?
Nah, only to say, I do. I mean, where culture is concerned, I don't, at this point in time, I don't know why culture is separated from something like economic system or spiritual. Like, I believe that culture, those things are within the ambit of a culture, and I think it'd be interesting, to look at it in that sense.
Certainly, I'm sure you'd agree with that, Brother Abiola.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I wanted to end on that point, in the sense of we're talking about the primary principles and values that inform all else. That inform the politics and inform the spirituality, inform the economics and these kinds of things. And in that respect now, there's a, like I said, there's a stigma attached to this cultural thing, especially when we talk about economics. Especially like a lot of, like you said, a lot of our leaders were leftists, they were socialists, and so a lot of them, some of them were like Cabral and Sekou Touré. They had a definitive focus on culture in ways that others didn't, right? But it can be kind of taboo because people think that you're only referring to, let's wear the gums, let's sing in some African songs, and let's teach in Yoruba, and that's it. But we're not talking about values and principles, and so we have a question here, and probably we'll end on this, Melanated Goddess asks, can you be Christian and Pan-African, Muslim and Pan-African?
Again, lots of interesting questions. I think, yes, you can be a Christian and Pan-Africanist and Muslim and Pan-Africanist. Why? Because Pan-Africanism doesn't have like a set of rules that say who is a true Pan-Africanist or who is not. So you can have your vision of how Pan-Africanism is and just subscribe to it. But for example, not everyone can declare to be a Catholic because there are actually rules and there is an authority, the Pope, who can excommunicate you, who can put you out of a church. You see, so I don't think there is a problem being a Christian or Pan-Africanist, and I think it is needed. We need all of our people who are Christian, of our brothers and sisters who are Muslim. We need them to get into Pan-Africanism. That is very important because they are the majority. So if we fail, brothers who are Muslim and Christian who are listening now, if we fail, it is your fault because you are the majority. So you need to get into the Pan-Africanist thing. We need that. And
go.
Just besides the Pan-Africanist or inside Pan-Africanism, there are different branches. So for example, Afrocentricity and Kamitism are branches of Pan-Africanism. So it's the same tree, but different branches. You see, where people are more focused on African spirituality and culture, for example.
Point taken. So then why does the leadership now need to be African spiritualists? If we can be, why is it necessary to have a leadership that is African spiritualist?
Because as you said, culture informs your worldview. So the people who are leading, they are supposed to be leading us somewhere. And we want this somewhere to be an African place. You see? So if they are following other cultures, we'll end up in France like Leopold Sédar Senghor, the first president of Senegal, and we will die in Normandy, you see, in France. So it's very important, and everything we will do in the economy, in the military, in the social relationships will be informed by our culture. So, for example, when the Egyptians were speaking about the concept of Mayat, it was so important that it was everywhere in your daily life and in government life. So Mayat, for example, that means justice, truth, order, harmony, prosperity. All of that was included in Mayat. So you couldn't have, for example, a government that was corrupt. It wouldn't be Mayat to have corrupt officials. It wouldn't be Mayat to have disorders, civil wars in the country. So all of that is Isafet. So when you are informed by this cultural worldview, you know that as a government official, a business owner, as a man or a woman, your duty in your life is to fulfill Mayat. Everything changes, you see, and that is, I will end up on this. That is why Africa need to get back to a top position in the world to defend this worldview, because we are in a world of Isafet, where there is disorder, there is lying, there is violence everywhere, and we have this worldview of Mayat, which is actually beneficial to the world, but to bring Mayat to the world, we need to be powerful. So we need to work on that.
Yes, sir. Brother Abiola, I'm truly appreciative of your presence here. I'm passionate about the fact that Africans in Europe just need to be more connected with each other. And so it was important for me to get you on this panel. It's not just across the waters. There are many Africans and we're very disconnected. We're very, very disconnected. And so hopefully myself and yourself can remedy that situation. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And it's partly the language barrier, because you know that we obviously find it easier to communicate with our brothers and sisters in America as people in England, but we've got to get over that. We've got to get over that. We have regional, we're regionally close to each other, and based upon where we are at, if we are organized because of our proximity to the continent, we can have a serious impact. So I look forward to continuing to grow and develop and build with you, my brother.
Ashe, my brother. Ashe.
I appreciate it.
Aibobo, like they say in Haiti. Aibobo.
Aibobo, Aibobo, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I've had two powerful brothers, you know, in the last 2 weeks, and I want people to understand the levels of scholarship and activism that operate in the Pan-African sphere, and in the future we're going to bring on more. Last year I was trying to have a conversation with Baba Kwesi Pra, who's a linguist, based in South Africa from Ghana. But the conversation was, can Africa speak one language? And I was going to get him to break it down. It never happened but I'm trying to reschedule that for September. So do stay tuned. And Brother Abiola will be delivering this presentation again in the month of Messiah. So stay tuned for that. I'll promote it. But the date is, what did I tell you, Brother Abiola? Did I tell you the 18th? The 18th, So he's going to be delivering something similar. You know what I'm saying, the war against NEO-COLONIALISm in the month of Messiah. So we're going to be delivering that, but on Al Kebulan's YouTube channel, Kings and Queens. So do stay tuned for that. And yeah, man, bigging up. We put the call out for the sisters to join us. They didn't, but we give thanks. We give thanks same way. And you're going to see, we're trying to get Auntie Affion on as well. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to hear from Auntie Affion at some point soon. You know what I mean? Yeah, man, everybody needs to hear from Auntie Affion. You know what I'm saying? I just say go. International Pan-African organizer, currently based in Nigeria. So we do give thanks for all of that. This is the final session in the Prelude to Messiah series. Yeah. And so we go into the month of Messiah now, starting with the first of Messiah, which is the Reparations March. The Messiah opening ceremony takes place on the 2nd of Messiah, which is this coming Sunday, but that'll be broadcast on Al-Kebulan Way. That's ALKEBULAN Way. Yeah. Al-Kebulan Way YouTube channel. So check it out there, and I'll inform you regarding the rest of the RBG Centennial Conference, the link for which, the website, you can find in the description to this video. So check that out right now. Yeah, check that out right now. And get your tickets. Yeah, it's going to be monumental. Over 70 presentations, kings and queens. Yeah, over 70 from Africans across the world. Yeah, so check that out. And finally, if you have appreciated the series, the RBG at 100 Prelude to Messiah series, feel free to show your appreciation and make a contribution by hitting up the PayPal link in the description. Yeah, all of these things take time and effort, and all these things, I'm sure Brother Abiola will agree with me. And so, yeah, man, one of the problems that we need to solve is being able to live off of the work that we do for our people. Yeah, we can't solve these problems, as Baba Amos Wilson would say, with 2-hour meetings on Sundays. Yeah, it takes consistent effort, and while they're putting in all that effort, children need to be fed and all these things. So we have to solve that problem as well, kings and queens. But we continue to build, and once again we show our appreciation for Brother Abiola and his excellent rendition this evening. I will be putting up the video once again tomorrow, yeah, so you can see the whole thing and get his breakdown of neo-colonialism, because it was excellent. Yeah, one of the best I've heard. So we look forward to it. One God, one aim, one destiny, race first, self-reliance, nationhood, and African spiritual orthodoxy. Hotep, Tendanwadi, Rastafari, Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodie. That's Black Power and African liberation. We fight and we will win. Ashe, Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe.